Okay, I'm calling to order regular city council meeting for the city of Hayden, Idaho. Tonight is Tuesday, November the 12th, 2024. It's approximately 5 p.m. Maybe we get a roll call of council members, please.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yep.
Would you join me, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? Sadie, would you like to lead us?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, under additions or corrections, I'm making a change to our agenda tonight. I'm going to put new business ahead of unfinished business so that those members of the public who came to listen about the Battleground Phase subdivision don't have to stay till the last part of the meeting. I'm also moving the ordinance to repeal Ordinance 214 to the last item of unfinished business. First item we have is a certificate of appreciation for Ben Prickett. Ben was the Planning and Zoning Commissioner for 6 years, and that's a long time to volunteer for the city, and I had the absolute pleasure of deliberating some very difficult and challenging land use decisions with Ben. So Ben, I would like to present you with this certificate, and thank you so much for your service. Thank you, sir. Thank you for making Hayden so much better than it could be.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Should we get a picture? Okay. Council, would you like to get a picture of that? You're welcome to.
Doesn't matter to me.
Do you want one?
Can we do it in front of
Did our other one show up? She's still coming, or?
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet, okay. I have one more, but our person's not here yet. So we're gonna try to get our extra mile hero in a little later in the meeting. I'm going to move on to our proclamation for Small Business Saturday. For those who are not aware, Small Business Saturday was created, I don't know exactly when, but, it's 15th year. Okay, so 15 years ago. And the idea is to encourage the community as shopping season starts for Christmas to support small businesses. We have many small businesses in our city, and I certainly want to encourage everyone. So I'm going to proclaim November 30th, 2024 as Small Business Saturday, and urge residents of our community and communities across the country to support small business and merchants on Small Business Saturday, celebrating its 15th year in 2024, and shop small throughout the year. Moving on to third thing, the consent calendar, which is approval of October 22nd, 2024 City Council meeting minutes, approval of October 29th, 2024 special City Council meeting minutes, acceptance of Toddy M. Cluse grant of easement, approval of reappointment of the Arts Commission members, approval of reappointment of Building Code members and Appeals members, approval of the reappointment of Hayden Urban Renewal Agency members, approval of the reappointment of Parks, Recreation, and Community Forest Commission members, approval of the reappointment of Historic Commission members, approval of FCS Group supplemental agreement for rate analysis for the publicly owned wastewater treatment system, approval of the independent contractors agreement with Grace Tree Service for government way tree pruning, ratification of the October 2024 payroll, ratification of bills paid on October 23rd, 2024, and approval of bills for payment. Are there any questions on the consent calendar, or would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, can I just make one comment, please?
Yes.
So we had an agreement earlier that you would provide us resumes and background information on any new appointments. I had, upon first blush, expected that for these reappointments, but after you and I discussed this, you made me understand that essentially the current members who are being reappointed, that the execution of their duties is in a way a depiction of their qualifications. And where I was going to ask that these be pulled out of the consent calendar, I am not going to anymore, but I just appreciate in the future that we try to hold to that agreement that you and I and the rest of council had.
Yes, as reflected in 6C, Brian Harrison was given to you guys a week ago, and I'm very glad that we were able to talk and have good communications to differentiate reappointments from new people. So thanks.
So,
Any other questions, or is there a motion that needs to be made? Or that you wish to make?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay.
It's just the consent calendar.
Yeah, I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'm hearing none. May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer,
yes.
Council President Roder,
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to the public comment portion of the agenda. Some new folks speaking tonight, so I'm going to ask you to hear my script first. For those who are talking tonight, this is a city council meeting, transparently documenting city business. Although it's not a meeting with this public, citizens may address the dais if they fill out a card located on the table at the back of the room. Public comments are welcome, but they cannot address those issues that our city council will reasonably hold a hearing, including issues related to anticipated land use decisions. As we are here to positively build our city, please refrain from using the podium as a spectacle. I will limit individual comments to 3 minutes, and speakers will state their name and primary residential city prior to addressing council. I encourage everyone to more meaningfully engage the city through a personal appointment with staff or myself if there's a problem to solve. And I will visibly indicate when a speaker needs to quickly conclude their comments. First person that has filled out a card tonight is Matt Edwards.
Is this on? Do I need to do anything?
Just tell us your name and primary city residence, please.
All right, my name is Matt Edwards. I live here in Hayden.
Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a serious matter, and it may sound trivial, but I don't believe it is. I want to address my local government here to seek a redress of grievance. Not only for myself, but for many who feel betrayed by the public and dismissive words of one of the elected representatives here in Hayden. Amidst an overwhelming public outcry currently for our U.S. senators from Idaho to align their votes with the new president's agenda, one local elected official reacted to the news of local citizens contacting their senators with demands by publicly stating, quote, "cracks me up, people demanding this or that, as if those demanding think they are really influential," end quote. In other words, an elected official mocked citizens contacting their representatives with demands and admitting that they hold little value in a constituent's concerns.
Matt, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Was this done as a representative of the city or as a private individual? In other words, let's say I did it. Did I say, Alan, as the mayor of Hayden says this, or did I just say it as myself?
This was directed at me.
Understand,
Okay.
but the person
I
that,
don't know how this person represented themselves.
in the written comments is what I'm asking.
In the written comments?
Right.
I have a copy of it. I can give it to you so you can have it. But my concern goes beyond, because it goes to their state of mind. Okay? As an elected representative. This statement has ignited profound disgust among people that I know and that I've spoken with, including in my family. In a moment when unity and responsiveness should guide our elected officials, we instead find mockery and a disregard for democratic participation. This isn't just a slip of the tongue, Mr. Mayor. It's an affront to the democratic principles that we hold dear. We, the people, are not a punchline in some political comedy show. Our demands, our voices, our very right to influence the course of our government is not for your amusement. Our participation in democracy is not a quaint tradition. It is the lifeblood of our nation. When we raise our voices, whether in demand, protest, or support, we do so because we believe in the power of the collective will. And to laugh at this is to laugh at the heart of what America is supposed to stand for. So I urge everyone in this community to stand up against this mockery. I call on all local Hayden elected officials to denounce these remarks. Our influence is not a joke, it is a right. Demanding action from those in power is not a trivial request, it is our civic duty. And our democracy thrives on active engagement, not on the apathy or the derision of those who govern. If recent events prove anything, it is that our representatives should remember who they serve, and we demand respect, not ridicule, for our engagement in the democratic process. So let this be a wake-up call. Serve with humility or step aside. Thank you.
A lot of good points, Matt. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm happy to share the specific quotes with all of you.
Thank you.
May I approach, or should I give these to Abby?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Ann Kine.
King, K-I-N-G.
Oh, King. I'm so sorry. What's that? No, after.
I did want to get something clarified before I speak.
Yes, ma'am. And real quick,
Oh, I'm
Hayden
sorry,
resident?
Ann King in Hayden.
Thank you, Ann.
Yes. I went online to look at the consent calendar, and I possibly have made a mistake, I admit that, but I thought there was, in the consent calendar, this action item, ordinance to repeal ordinance 214. Did I read that correctly online, where the agenda is listed?
It should never have been a consent, no.
Okay, so will that be one of the items discussed tonight? Okay, I would just like to ask if you folks here know what ordinance 214 is.
And you should be talking to council.
Well, we all need to know what ordinance 214 says in its entirety. And if this action item gets passed by you folks, this is absolute censorship. And I believe we do have the right to free speech, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak here. But this ordinance would basically shut down any of you from taking an item that shows up on the consent calendar and putting it into an action item, down below. That's censorship. If none of you have an opportunity to speak up and ask for something to be moved, instead of just blanket voted on. So that's all I'm asking you, is that you would not approve this ordinance 214, because we all know that that would be censorship. And we've had enough censorship lately. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. And if you have the time, I encourage you to come down and talk to Abby about this a little more. Some of the things you said are not 100% accurate. Okay, that is all of the public comments we have tonight. Okay. All right. Which one? Oh, is our hero here? Oh, very good. All right. Yes. All right, Barbara Bennett is here tonight, yes? Hi. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
You want to stand for the seal?
Yes, please.
We're recognizing you. getting an award.
For what?
You're being recognized as an extra mile hero.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
So I've been asked to read this,
I walk every day, and I did go an extra mile.
so hang on there. Hang on there. Barbara Bennett is recognized as an extra mile hero. Barbara demonstrates years of commitment to Hayden, most recently serving on our city's history. She spends countless hours wonderfully capturing the biographies of the historic figures that have shaped our community and continues to document stories from families relocating to Hayden. Barbara's commitment to chronicle the past and preserve current events to improve our citizens' quality of life are commendable and epitomize being recognized as an extra mile hero. Thank you, thank you.
I'll get that.
That was my boob that did that.
Okay. I'm gonna blush.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
You bet.
Yeah. Look at Dave.
All right, if we've recovered, Donna, I believe you're leading the first thing we're going to discuss tonight, action item PZE 0193, request for preliminary plat of Battleground Phased Subdivision.
Mayor, I have a question. I thought we were gonna do 5B, which is a Trail Ridge subdivision.
We're going to do the 5s after the 6s. I'm doing this just, like I said, there may be members of the public here who are here for this, so.
Okay,
Yeah, we're going to run through new business and then we're going to go loop back up to unfinished
got it.
business.
All right, thanks.
And keep you on your toes, Matt.
You knew this, didn't you?
I did. I did know this.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. See you later.
It's not that I don't work on it.
I know.
I just do it in my spare time.
I love our town.
It's pretty awesome.
I agree.
So tonight, we're here to talk about the Battleground subdivision, PZE number 200193. And this is a public meeting. And I know that you guys have had an opportunity to review your staff reviews, the written recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission and their minutes, and most likely have watched the Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting. So this is really a summary of all of that information, and I'll try not to belabor it because I know it's quite extensive. But I do have most of the file here if you have specific questions.
Yep, and just for the public's understanding, this is not going to be a hearing tonight.
Correct.
It's just going to be a presentation by staff. And all of council and myself have had the opportunity for at least 2 weeks to review the planning and zoning meeting where this issue was discussed thoroughly.
So just as a matter of location, the subdivision request is for the 80 acres that are south of Hayden Avenue and west of North Carrington Street. The apartments are already constructed as a part of a previous approval process. The development team, the applicant's engineer of record is here tonight, Ray Kimball from Whipple Engineers, and Jekiah Cornett is the land development director for Viking Construction. They're both here. And the owners of the project is Viking Construction Incorporated. We had a question at the tail end of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting as to where this property was and where the city limits were. And so the pink is the inside the city, and everything that's not pink is in the county. So This is a multi-phased major subdivision to include 176 single-family residential lots, 2 commercial lots, one of which will be is vacant, and one has those 144 apartments already constructed, and then one 12-acre park. The project is vested under codes and plans, policies in effect in September of 2020. That was before Imagine Hayden. It's also required to follow the annexation agreement that existed as part of the annexation of the property into the city. It's required to follow the special use permit that allowed for those apartments to be constructed, and it would be required to follow the deferred park improvement agreement, development agreement, already a part of this project, entered into between the city and the owner. So the proposed plat is found on page 15 of your staff review. This is one of those commercial lots where the apartments are already located. This is the additional one commercial lot, 176 single-family lots. That's the 12-acre plus or minus acre park. And this is the 0.4 acre well lot. There's already a well on that location. There's no individual access proposed for Carrington Street, for Downing Avenue, for Honeysuckle, Robeson, and Hayden. So the standards of approval that existed at the time that this is vested under 1234F identified that the applicant has demonstrated to the satisfaction of the city engineer and the responsible agency that all existing and proposed infrastructure meet or can be constructed within 2 years after the date of the city council approval of the master development agreement, which approved the preliminary plat to meet the following standards. So those two groups of entities are part of the city engineer's memo, which is found on page 115 of the staff analysis. And then the public agency comments begin on page 120 of the staff analysis. So standards 1 and 2. The first standard talks about, can this be constructed to function in a manner that promotes the public health, safety, and welfare? Post Falls Highway District provided comments. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District provided comments that related to access and how folks get in and out. And then infrastructure can be constructed and located in an orderly manner that accommodates ongoing maintenance needs when taking into consideration co-location of other infrastructure. And that standard is evaluated through the applicant's narrative, through the engineer's memo, and then through the staff analysis. So then standard number 3 talks about all of the infrastructure in parts and pieces. Didn't list each of those standards here, but will serve letters were provided from Hayden Lake Irrigation District in July of 2020, and then they updated in March of 24. Idaho Department of Water Resources and Hayden Lake Irrigation District both talked about the well site and preserving that and protecting that well to remain. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District provided comments for construction in September of 2020 and again updated in March of 24. Will serve letters for sewer were provided by the city of Hayden in August of 20 and updated in 24. The project site is kind of split across sewer basins, the H7 sewer basin and the H8 sewer basin. The H8 sewer basin has to be constructed and accepted prior to the city being able to issue building permits in that basin because it has to have somewhere to flow. And then stormwater and snow storage always is reviewed at the time of construction plan in accordance with Title 8. So the proposed location of the lift station is not on this particular property site. It's proposed to be located in property that's owned by the Coeur d'Alene School District. And as you found in your packet, there's an MOU draft from various developers in the area, as well as the Coeur d'Alene School District, for the location of this lift station and cooperation between them to build that lift station for the H8 basin. Street names and addressing shall be reviewed by the city at the time of the final plat review, mostly because if you reviewed all the street names today, or if we had reviewed them all in 2020, by the time it platted, most likely they would have been used by other locations. And we never want to have duplicate of road names for 911 because we want to make sure our emergency services folks can find it. The annexation agreement identified roadways within the 2007 Transportation Strategic Plan for dedications of right-of-way and typical sections. Dedications for Hayden Avenue, Carrington Street, and Honeysuckle Avenue were completed within the apartment development. The annexation agreement didn't distinguish between development for a site plan versus development for a subdivision. It was just development. So that's why those were dedicated at that time. And the applicable standards are those at the time development construction commences. That's specific in the annexation agreement. Transportation impact analysis as part of the special use permit was completed in 2019. The developer provided an updated TIA in July of 2024, which is under review at this time. So staff suggests, should this request be approved, that a separate cost share and proportionate reimbursement agreement be entered into as a condition of the subdivision approval and prior to construction plan submittal. All required street improvement shall be in accordance with current city standard drawings, including pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, stormwater facilities, etc. Okay, so Imagine Hayden, we had plans that had been updated kind of independent of each other. And so because they were adopted independent of each other, they didn't always land up really well. And so the parks plan identifies these kind of green blobs that was showing the connectivity between our parks throughout the city. A school system, a school-owned piece of property was not, it was not owned by the school when this plan was originally adopted. So,
Don, I was going to say for the public, I think one thing we failed to mention is that council's making a decision tonight based on standards that predate our current comprehensive plan. So that's why you're seeing maps that don't look familiar. That's why you might be seeing standards that are worded a little differently.
find some water.
Okay. So this hearing, well, I'm sorry, this isn't a hearing. This agenda item tonight is a real curveball relative to what we're used to seeing here at council.
Thanks. So the plans kind of showed where the greenways would make interconnectivity between parks, between multimodal pathways, and potentially with schools, but they're very graphic in nature. A transportation plan then looked at multimodal pathways that kind of made sense along arterials and collectors, not necessarily looking at how they laid out amongst parks. So provisions have been made for erosion controls and geohazards, stabilization, both during construction and as needed for permanent controls to the satisfaction of the city. Per the engineer's memo, this shall be reviewed at the time of construction plan submittal. Provisions have been made for gas, power, telecommunications, mailboxes, and similar infrastructure. All the dry utilities have to go underground. Mailboxes, we don't really like to see mailboxes on collector streets. We like to keep them more on the local streets to keep them safer. Otherwise, they need turnouts in order to get to them. We work with the United States Post Office for those locations. Provisions have been made for driveway locations that take into consideration the width, the location of the driveway in relation to the location of snow storage, utility boxes, crosswalks, adjacent roads, mailboxes, and the like. So that's where you get no individual access to Carrington, Downing, Honeysuckle, Robeson, and Hayden. And then the area proposed for the subdivision is zoned for the proposed use, and the use conforms to other requirements found in this code. So the property is zoned commercial at the northern portion where the apartments are, so pretty much between Hayden and Dunkirk, and single-family residential south of Dunkirk. So the zone map that was adopted in March of 2019, that was the zone map in place at the time of the vesting, had commercial along the north side and single-family residential. And today's zone map shows exactly the same thing, so nothing has changed there. So the future land use map in the old comprehensive plan actually was made up of two maps. It was a use map, a land use map, and then a residential densities map. So the portion of the project that was adjacent to Hayden Avenue was identified as general commercial. Over there. Was annexed with a commercial zone designation consistent with the future land use map. And at the time of the request to construct multifamily dwellings with buildings which had more than 3 dwelling units per building required a special use permit, because in general commercial, you were allowed multifamily with a special use permit. This request was approved with conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission in July of 2019. The complete application submittal for the subdivision was received in September of 2020. And then in April of 2021, that allowable use by special use permit was removed from the commercial. So no residential was now allowed in commercial. And the use was added to a new zone designation of mixed use. So had they come forward with the apartments request today, they would have had to do a zone map amendment to mixed use to allow that to be there. The annexation agreement restricted the maximum density of this property to no more than 4 dwelling units per gross acre, or 320 dwelling units for the 80-acre project site. So you'll note that in your staff reviews, it's quite thick, mostly because you have almost the entire old comp plan in your staff review. I look at certain goals and policies that affect a decision. In this case, you've got commercial and residential. You have multifamily and single family. You've got a well site, and it pretty much covers just about the whole comp plan. So the vision begins on page 34 of your staff review of the comp plan. Then the goals and policies were between pages 35 to 47. In your analysis, they're only colored just because of distinction in case planning and zoning or folks had concerns or questions and wanted to talk back and forth. And then in the appendix, I included all of the areas of all of the goals and policies that could have applied, including their entirety. So you've got everything from planning and administration, population, land use, natural resources, aquifer and water protection, hazardous areas, public services to include sewer and water and solid waste emergency services, transportation, housing, school facilities. It has a park in here for recreation and it butts up against school facilities. Economic development, community design, pedestrian and bicycle pathways, special areas or sites, this is near the airport, and then property rights. That's pretty much the comp plan. And then the 8th standard is the developers made adequate plans to ensure that the community will bear no more than its fair share of costs to provide services by paying fees, furnishing land, or providing other mitigation measures for off-site impacts to streets, parks, and other public facilities within the community. It is the expectation that in most cases, off-site improvements will be dealt with through agreements. So there's a park development agreement, and they'll have to develop consistent with that agreement. They have a Post Falls Highway District agreement that was part of your staff review. They have to have mitigation consistent with that. They may have mitigation consistent with off-site transportation mitigation once we get those results back from the transportation impact analysis. And then all infrastructure per the adopted city code standards and plans. So we sent notices out to 21 agencies in 2020 and 27 agencies in 2024. And the public agencies that were responded included the Coeur d'Alene Airport, who requested an navigation easement in 2020, and one was recorded in 2022. Post Falls Highway District requested the city to annex the roadways to block access to Robeson until completion of work mitigated in their agreement was completed. That was requested in 2020, and then the road improvement agreement was reached with the special use permit. And as of 2024, Post Falls Highway District provided additional comments that are in your staff review. Hayden Lake Irrigation District gave the proposal their full support of the subdivision in 2020 and in 2024. Lakeland School District provided comments in 2020, but since then, the school district boundaries have shifted, and so they no longer had comments for this particular project. Idaho Department of Environmental Quality provided construction plan submittal requirements in April of '24. And the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District had comments in 2020 and then again in 2024. Part of those comments had to do with access. There's a clause in the fire code that talks about the fact that you have to provide for future connectivity if you have 30 or more homes, and that's what they commented back on was with respect to the phasing plan and those access points. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office provided no concerns at this time in March of '24. The Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board had comments relating to the force main construction details. That's from the lift station north to the treatment plant. They wanted to add language to the plat in September of 2020 and then reiterated that in March of '24. Kootenai County Community Development had no comments or concerns, both in September of '20 and in March of '24. Idaho Fish and Game had no comments in April of '24. And Idaho Department of Water Resources commented about water rights, well drilling in April of '24. So we did receive 3 public comments that were in opposition prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. And all of these kind of talked about concerns related to the aquifer and infrastructure development. I reached out to the aquifer protection folks that we noticed with all of our agency notices, and asked if I had missed something in the comments, because the aquifer is really important and we want to make sure that we're protecting it. It's one of the comprehensive plan items as well. And so I reached out to them and they asked if I'd received comments back from Idaho Department of Water Resources. I said yes. And Hayden Lake Irrigation District, I said yes. And Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, and I said yes. And they said, well, those would have been where you would have heard if there were concerns from any of those agencies regarding the aquifer. So I did reach out to see if there were any additional comments that we needed to include. And I did have comments from all of the agencies. Those are in your staff analysis. And no concerns were identified in any of those 3 other agencies. So at the conclusion of the public hearing and the deliberations of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the subdivision preliminary plat request with amended conditions of approval as provided in the written recommendation and summarized here. These are not in specifics, they're in your written recommendations and in your minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission that you were provided with last week, I believe. So the written recommended conditions of approval are that dedications and easements need to be on the plat. Any joint stormwater requirements or easements or maintenance, any of that needs to be on the plat. Permits from outside agencies, which could include the Coeur d'Alene Airport, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, Idaho Department of Water Resources, the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, Hayden Lake Irrigation District, Northern Lakes Fire Protection District, Panhandle Health District, or Post Falls Highway District, need to be obtained and reviewed and a part of the project. This approval runs with the land. Phasing plan shall be required at the time of the construction plan submittal. Park development shall be in conformance with the deferred park development agreement. Sewer basin infrastructure, both for H7 and H8, shall be constructed in conformance with the sewer will serve requirements, Hayden City Code, policies, and standards. And that no building permits can be issued in the H8 basin until it's complete, operational, and approved by the city. Prior to the construction improvement agreement, got that in there twice, what am I trying to say here? Prior to the construction improvement agreement, with the school district, for the lift station, and ingress, egress to the lift station, easements need to be addressed and how that's gonna, the land needs to be, that construction easement needs to be there, the ingress, egress easement needs to be there, so that when that comes on as city infrastructure, we will own the property and we'll have a perpetual way to get in and out of there for maintenance. A sewer technical analysis shall be completed prior to the construction plan submittal for the H8 basin and the lift station, and that is currently underway. And then completion of the transportation impact analysis peer review also needs to be done prior to the construction plan submittal. The developer shall enter into a separate agreement as necessary to mitigate the requirements identified in that TIA. All lots shall be accessed from the internal roads of the subdivision. No lot shall have any form of individual access onto those streets: Carrington, Downing, Hayden, Honeysuckle, and Robeson, with the exception of two. The well lot that is north of Honeysuckle may have direct access to Honeysuckle Avenue, and the lift station may have an access point either to Downing Lane, which is west of both this subdivision and the school property, or have access onto West Honeysuckle Avenue, depending on where that actual lift station gets placed at the end of the day. Construction plan requirements shall include, in accordance with Hayden City Code 12, Title 12, Chapter 6, Carrington Street shall be built to a C2 typical section when it's all done. They're really only required to build half of the road, their half of the road, but that half width needs to make sure that it's a 24-foot paved minimum, so you have it wide enough for two-way travel. That portion of Downing Street that serves the lift station shall be constructed with the first phase of the subdivision in accordance with the typical section or an approved alternate design. So again, because we don't know where the lift station is really going to go on that property, it might be a driveway access and it might be a road access. So that's what we're trying to preserve here. Dunkirk Avenue shall be fully constructed because the whole street is within the subdivision. Honeysuckle Avenue shall be constructed to a C1 typical section. The Parks Master Plan identifies connectivity between parks and schools, so this typical section shall include a multimodal pathway. Easement from Coeur d'Alene School District needs to be recorded concurrently with the final plat. So as you saw in the hold that thought, way back at the beginning here. As you saw, if indeed they have to go south of the well here to make that 50-foot radius, 50-foot radius, in order to preserve and protect the well house, they need to shift Honeysuckle to the south, which goes into the Coeur d'Alene School District property. So if indeed that road does need to shift to the south to make that work, then they'll need to get an easement to grant that right-of-way to make it work. And again, the minimum two-way travelway is 24 feet of paved surface. Robeson Avenue shall be built to the AC1 typical section for the city's portion. And then internal streets shall be constructed in accordance with the local typical section. Erosion control measures shall be reviewed at the time of construction plan review. The developer shall use the Hayden sanitary sewer in accordance with adopted sewer master plan. Concurrence from the post office with the mailbox locations. And then the sewer line from Pearl Harbor Loop to Anzio Loop is located in open space tract. And the tract shall be wide enough to address sewer depth. And the multimodal pathway shall be in accordance with the sewer policies and the non-motorized pathways code. And the maintenance of the open space tract shall be the responsibility of a property owners association. The site of the existing well house should comply with Hayden City Code with respect to site development. And the site of the H8 lift station shall also comply with Hayden City Code with respect to site development. In other words, we expect to see 2 site plan permits come in the door and be reviewed by city staff and approved in accordance to the site development of the city. Landscape plans must conform to city code for individual lots, for the city park, for street frontage, for the greenway, for the multimodal class 1 pathway. And all disturbed areas shall be stabilized with dry land grass or other approved BMP. So then we have the requirements of the other agencies. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District letter of March of 24. Post Falls Highway District Development Agreement of March of 22. The avigation easement was recorded in April of 22, and it'll be referenced on a final plats. The developer shall record an easement acceptable to the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, identifying the language as requested and referenced on the plat after the easement is recorded. Just identifies that they are near the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, and there may be odors or adverse impacts related to being close to a treatment plant. And the developer shall record a 20-foot wide water line easement to HLID where the water line runs cross-country. So the city council can make findings and a decision after they've deliberated with a motion to approve based on the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommended conditions of approval. Or you can continue, or you can have a motion to deny. I stand for questions.
Okay, council, so again, there's not going to be a hearing tonight, so the applicant will not be presenting. This is the presentation by which deliberations and questions should be made.
Mr. Mayor, are we allowed to ask clarifying questions
Any
about?
of Donna,
Okay.
and obviously of legal counsel or Lisa if required.
Yeah, the importance is, and for the public to understand, because the public hearing is closed, there's no additional testimony being taken. So you can ask clarifying questions of staff, but there is not any additional information outside of your current record that should be considered.
Is the planning and zoning meeting that has been recorded and is public, is that part of the public record?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
A couple of things to hopefully clarify for the public, probably more so than anything, to make, because I've seen a lot of stuff out there again, which is, appears to be some confusion. This is part of an annexation agreement of what, 2013? Is that correct, whenever the annexation was?
Yeah, probably.
But it agreed then to a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre. And that appears to be what with the apartments and the houses, what it is, what the math comes out to. The through streets, I know there was some discussion, and the traffic is a big issue with anything we do. Honeysuckle Bean, let's start from the south. Is that going to go through all the way?
Which way?
Both east, west. Will it be a through street all the way through?
Eventually, it's not proposed to go east at the moment, because that's unincorporated land, and so it's not proposed to connect to the east.
So will
and the
there be-
road does not connect to this, it doesn't go all the way through.
So you won't have traffic on Honeysuckle Bean. It'll somehow or another dead end, be barricaded, what have you, so that you don't have people using that as they now use Prairie and
Correct,
Hayden.
because this isn't developed, this end of Bean isn't developed at all.
Right. Same thing with Robeson. It looks like it's a cul-de-sac as it dead ends into the.
It will connect Robeson will go through at the conclusion of their agreement with Post Falls Highway District.
Okay, and Hayden, of course, is what Hayden is. Can we ask, how long will this build-out take? I don't know if it was in there.
Phased subdivisions have a 5-year approval period
Okay,
for the subdivision infrastructure to get built. And so the lag time is usually 1 to 2 years behind final subdivision approvals.
Okay. And just, I guess a comment, being somewhat of a history, especially World War II history, I don't see anywhere in here that they have indicated they're going to have any type of signs or, relating to the historical nature of the names of their streets and stuff like that, which I think would be nice. But anyways, I believe that answers all my questions for now. Thank you.
Matt?
Ladies,
Are you deferring to me all the way down here, Matt? Or-
Yeah,
oh, ladies
whatever.
first.
No, I was,
Matt, just go.
can we go back to your noticing page, please? I have to look through my notes here. I recall, and maybe you can help me, Cooney County Sheriff's Office, it says there's no concern at this time. There was a previous letter provided, a response before the 2024. Can you pull that letter up?
Maybe.
If you can't, I've got it.
Was it in staff analysis?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, this is a letter from Captain Andrew Deek, Operations Support Commander, regarding the Battleground subdivision. In his letter, he says, we would like to make you aware of the future impact that this would have on the public safety for the city of Hayden. Does that sound like a concern?
Potentially, but if their subsequent letter from 24.
This is
5
24.
5 years later.
No, this says March 25th,
Is that the same letter?
2024.
Okay, hold on, let me find it. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Where do I want to go?
Agendas and minutes.
Hold that thought.
I can give you the letter if you want to read it.
That's all right. I'm just trying to get it for the public, so.
Okay.
And if I've misspoke, we need to find it. Do you happen to know what page that's on?
It does not have a page. It's
All
under
right.
the,
It's under the noticing.
yeah.
All right.
Maybe Control F, Donna?
I don't know if it'll find it in this version. See, I did say there's a lot of comp plan in here.
I know I had to go through a lot of pages too. The heading says Sheriff Cooney County on the top of the page.
Yeah. So those are older ones.
There it is. Next one down. So I'll read the last paragraph. It says, also a final area to consider is the increased congestion with traffic from the development proposed and surrounding surface streets that will have to handle this additional traffic flow, which could further burden a rapid law enforcement response. As you are aware, there are limitations to the response public safety can offer when we rely on our community development partners to be proactive in planning and properly addressing current and future growth. And I guess the key part of that is, he's saying you got to consider the increased congestion. To me, that's a concern. I think that's a concern of probably every person in Hayden. Would you agree?
I would.
Okay.
Donna, question for the clarification. Is this an individual who works for the sheriff providing their opinion, or is this the official
This is the official
opinion of
response.
the sheriff?
It's the official response from the sheriff's
Yeah,
department.
that's a good clarification.
So for the record, I just want to say that our sheriff's concerned about the increase in traffic. Okay, can we go back to noticing, please?
Can I briefly?
Oh,
I just
yeah.
want to pull where I pulled that summary from, was the very first sentence from the letter, which says, "The sheriff's office has reviewed the request of change and does not see any immediate impact that would prevent it from being approved." Okay, go ahead.
But he does acknowledge that it creates,
Correct, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
because he's not the final say on the approval or not.
Correct, I'm just saying that there's a whole letter there, there's not just the final
Sure,
paragraph or the
sure.
beginning.
But I just want to make the point that there is a concern by our sheriff's department. Okay, let's go to noticing back, please.
That's this one, okay?
Lakeland School District. I did a search of their map today of their school district, and they show that Hayden Canyon and this development are both in their school district zone.
I reached out to them because I was looking for specific comments back, and the answer that I received was that this project was no longer in their boundaries. I can only work off of what they tell me.
So the map that I picked up today off their website is incorrect.
Tap that.
Okay, I would like clarification for that. I just would like to know for sure, because they did give a response. Could you show the response letter?
I can.
And I know it's predicated on whether they're in the Lakeland, if they're in the Lakeland district or not. But I think it's indicative of what is happening with our schools in general. So I'd like to point out in the first paragraph, again, we don't know right now. I see a map and I believe you too, but I just like to get whether or not. It says, "Our district is very concerned with the impact this size of development will have on our most crowded elementary school and our very aged junior high." In the third paragraph, it says, "It is difficult for us to be supportive of this development with no consideration of our land acquisition and growth needs. Out of the countless developments built in our community over the last several years, only one developer has donated land to the district to build an elementary school. Lakeland is known and sought after for small neighborhood schools, and we must partner with developers to continue this valuable tradition." See, they didn't pass their levy, and so they're gonna have to cut. So if this is indeed in the Lakeland district, then I have a very grave concern about the welfare of students. And part of our requirement of the city is the health, safety, and welfare of our constituents. And if the welfare of our students is being hampered because there's not enough room in schools, that's a concern that I have. Okay, let's look at the response from the Cooney County Aquifer Protection District.
There's that one.
Oh, wait a minute, we're all being taxed, your property taxes. Do you know that they collect money from your property and their goals are protection of the aquifer and education of the people to protect it? So my concern is the silence. If their goals are to do that, why are they silenced? And for all of you, if you want to get one of these, I just picked it up today from Cooney County, and it's a great atlas on the Spokane Valley, Rafton Prairie Aquifer, and there's a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent putting this together to describe the aquifer, and you will hear two terms, sole source. It's a sole source drinking water for over 500,000 people in our area in Spokane, and it's a sensitive aquifer. And I'm going to quote, there's a quote on page 17 of the atlas. The SVRP, the Spokane Valley.
Matt, I don't think we can use that document as evidence in
It's
this.
outside the record, Matt.
Oh, so we're going to ignore looking at okay, well then, I still would like to read this into the record, and if you delete.
Your record is closed, so you can absolutely make commentary.
Okay, I'd
about
like
it.
to ask Donna then.
In your, well, just a second, let me finish. You can make your commentary in your deliberations about your concerns for their lack of response. That's appropriate.
Okay, so I'd like to ask Donna, are you aware that the Spokane Valley Rafkin Prairie Aquifer is an unconfined and has no protective layer above it to keep pollutants out? Are you aware of that?
I'm going to look to legal counsel to tell
I'm
me.
just asking for an opinion. Do we know that?
I don't have an opinion,
You're
and
to
it's not a
ask
part
her-
of the record.
You're to ask her questions related to the existing record. The record's closed.
Okay, then let's go to the goals.
Right.
Is one of the goals to protect the aquifer?
It is.
Could you show us that in the staff review?
Can you blow that up a little, Donna?
There's another section under the goals that have been placed in rectangular boxes.
Correct, but you asked for the aquifer. This is the whole piece of the comprehensive plan that refers to the aquifer
Okay, can you point out where
and the goals.
it says it addresses the aquifer?
It's the whole chapter. It's the whole section. That's what it's titled, aquifer.
And is the goal to protect it?
Protect the existing high quality of the Rathdrum Prairie aquifer, groundwater from contamination and deterioration to the maximum extent possible.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm going to request is that there be a study done to determine the effect that the subdivision has on the Spokane Rathdrum Prairie aquifer. In other words, it creates, I'm just going to ask for that's one of the things that I will ask for me to consider approving this, is I want to see what the study says, whether that affects the aquifer at all or not. So I just wanted to make that point.
Matt, for clarification, are you asking for city staff to perform that or for the applicant to perform that?
Well, I don't know, whose responsibility is it?
Well,
Are we supposed to as one of our goals?
I'm just asking where you want the cost to lie. so
Oh,
we
the
make sure-
developer. Absolutely. If they want to build and make money, which is fine, that's good, they should pay for that study.
That's all I was asking.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I want to read from the executive summary on page 6. Could you go to that, please?
I think that's online, so it's in board book. I don't have board book open. I
You want
think
me to read it?
It's in board book. So which page?
It's page 6, and it's the executive summary, PZE 200193 Battleground SUB. It's under HCC 12-3-4F8.
Page 6.
HCC
I'm sorry, I'm a little behind you, so I'm just trying to get,
12-3-4F8.
Is it the executive summary that is titled Mayor Davis and members of the council, or is it the executive summary that was to the planning and zoning commission?
I don't know, I just printed that page out. I'm sorry.
So
I
what
mean, there's
page?
100 and some pages. so
Yeah, I understand. So which page did you
page
say?
6,
6, please.
Is it highlighted in green, Matt?
yes.
It is.
Yeah.
You want me to read it?
I got it, I think. F which? F8, is that what you said? F6?
No, F8.
F8. The developer has made adequate plans to ensure that the community will bear no more than its fair share of costs to provide services by paying fees, furnishing land, or providing other mitigation measures for off-site impacts to streets, parks, and other public facilities within the community. It's the expectation that in most cases, off-site improvements will be dealt with through agreements.
So the first sentence says the developer has made adequate plans. Where are they? Are they part of this? Do we get to see what their plans are? I mean, we should be able to see if they state they have the plans to do what they say here, where are they? Are they included?
I believe the statement following that provides for the record what those plans are, which include a deferred park agreement, an infrastructure development agreement to mitigate off-site improvements, and they've entered into an MOU to design and construct the H6 lift station and pressure lines.
So do we know costs?
H8, excuse
Or are
me.
they just saying we're going to do this and there are no costs? I'm just looking for some detail.
Yeah, this isn't the phase at which that would happen. This is, a preliminary plat application is have they met the code requirements to divide their land consistent with your code?
I know, but when they said they have plans, I just would like to see them. Okay, so let's go to, on page 7 of the Battleground subdivision prepared by D. Phillips, there's a one page 7 that is infrastructure, and there's a highlight in blue. It has to do with, the question is, should the city not annex Robertson Avenue and Ben Avenue? I guess my question is, why do we have to annex more land?
What are you looking at, Matt? I'm sorry.
I don't know where he's at.
Page 7, under legal description, analysis. And it's highlighted in blue, and it's like the first long sentence that said, should the city not annex Robinson Avenue and Bean, then the road shall be blocked. My question is, why do we have to annex more land?
Post Falls Highway District in their response letter requested that we annex land right-of-way, Carrington and Robeson, because Robeson does connect to Carrington. The city pointed out to them that we couldn't annex Robeson because we can't annex just right-of-way. And there is no city property north of Robeson and south of Robeson at that connection. Let me show you. If you go back to this map, Robeson does connect into future North Carrington, except that it's, according to Post Falls Highway District, they have mitigation requirements in order for it to connect into North Carrington. In Post Falls Highway District's request, it was a request by them for the city to annex those rights of way.
Are we under obligation to annex that land?
Not
So
at
it's
the
up to the
moment.
discretion of the council.
That request hasn't come as a formal request to the council. It was a comment in Post Falls Highway District's conversation with the applicant and their mitigation requirements.
So is it true, we're not under any obligation to annex that land?
Not today.
Okay, thank you. So let's go to page 12 of the Battleground subdivision prepared by D. Phillips.
Okay.
And it's a mention about transportation concurrency analysis. The adequacy of the current transportation system to include transportation systems improved to be constructed by the city within the next 5 years to support the additional impacts resulting from the proposed development as based upon city adopted minimum level of service standards shall be evaluated. This shall be required as part of the building and site submittal according to city code. Where's the money going to come from to pay for that?
We don't have the analysis from the peer review at this point in time. But if they have requirements that require them to build infrastructure or pay additional portions, that would be addressed as part of that future agreement with them, as part of that transportation impact analysis review in accordance with our plans.
So we have a whole bunch of road problems that we have to fix, and we don't have much money. I'm just asking, where's the money gonna come from to do this? Okay? Let's go down in that same page, the last paragraph there. It says Whipple Consulting Engineers completed the analysis in October of 2029. The developer.
2019.
Yeah, October of 2019. The developer has provided an updated TIA dated J? What's J?
July, it's stuck over here when it became a PDF. Next page, July 2nd of '24.
I don't have it. It's not on my paper.
It's on the next page, on page 13.
So have they've updated it, is that
They
true?
have.
And now they have their analysis of the traffic impact, and what we need to have happen, if I get this right, is we have to have an independent consultant verify that.
Correct, and it's
And-
under review as we speak.
And who's paying for that?
They are,
They being the developer?
the developer.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'd rather listen to our consultants, so before I can make any decision.
It is our consultant reviewing their plan. They did their transportation impact analysis, they submitted it to the city. They paid for our transportation planner to review their analysis to make sure that it's correct and accurate. That review is occurring currently.
Right, and what I'm saying is until that analysis is done, I will trust what our people do that we pay for that analysis. I just want to make that point.
But you don't pay for that analysis.
Well, they pay for it, but it's for our benefit to double check. And I kind of like to double check stuff on our side. Okay. I think I've answered that question. Now, let's go to you have a map on page 33 of the airport impact overlay.
Let me pull it up on the other one so they can see, because it's older.
What's older?
The airport impact overlay that you're seeing in that map is from M1 of the comp plan that was approved at that point in time,
Hey, what year was that? Roughly.
2000 and, might be 8.
Okay, so we have an old overlay map?
Yeah, they're under the old comprehensive plan, so you have to utilize
So
those materials.
I know there's probably been updates to the overlay map that the county airport has produced, and I would like to see that overlay map. Now, if you're saying that this can be approved based on an old map rather than the future, I'd just like to see the difference. Maybe there's no difference. So that's one of the things I'm going to request is a updated airport overlay map.
Just for clarification, you want to see what the current map looks like compared to the old one to see if there's any difference?
Correct. Yep. Okay, let's go to Battleground subdivision prepared by D. Phillips, page 37. It has to do with natural resources and groundwater quality, and I just want to make the point, this also goes to the protecting the aquifer. I think that this is addressed as a natural resource. Okay, we got that one done. One of the things that's kind of bugged me over the years is, because I sit on the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, is we get complaints of it stinks. And it does sometimes. And I know we have what do they call it, an odor easement. And one of the things that I'm understanding is that, and I like to see, is any development within the possibility of what has an odor easement, that it's disclosed on any advertising that the sale of those properties, those people are given that it's an odor easement, because we get calls saying, I didn't know about this. So I don't know if that's a condition of approval that we can add in there, but I sure would like to have that, and it would probably help our staff, so if we got calls, we can say, well, your realtor should have told you, or it was on the literature.
So Matt, just so you know, under the comments, the conditions of approval as they were approved. Is it this one? This odor easement isn't on the face of the plat. It's an easement that Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board will create, and then it will get recorded and referenced on the plat. That way, title reports will pick it up as an individual document. So if Harbs wants to add additional language in how that easement is worded, then they could do that between them and the developer, and then we would require it to be referenced on the plat. That's what this condition is meant. 17.
Okay, I understand that, but what I'm saying is most people don't read the title report. They don't get that there's an odor easement, or else we wouldn't be getting these calls. I'm just saying, the people that market those properties, I would like to see them have a disclosure, if we can do that. That's my
Matt?
point.
Apologies for interrupting. A general comment for the entire city council. Tonight's agenda item is to consider approving or not a preliminary plat. Preliminary plat is simply the city's initial agreement that a landowner may break up a piece of property, and correct me if I'm wrong, council, please, into smaller pieces. A lot of what these questions are, to me, are questions that are applicable to final plats or to construction phase and not to preliminary plat. And I'm just pointing this out so we can kind of focus our questions to the decisions tonight and to keep the questions relevant. They're all good points in time, should this project go forward into its next phase. But for tonight, again, it's just simply a preliminary plat. That is all.
So, yeah, I'm just looking at the record, and as we're only allowed to look at the record, I want to bring up concerns that I have, and that's what I'm doing.
Yep, no, I understand. Just a lot of them, or at least some of them, don't seem to really apply to preliminary plat decisions.
We did the airport. Okay, we did that. The subdivision narrative, page 9, there's a conclusion. And in the conclusion, if you want to go to it, it's just, it was dated June 23rd, 2020.
So that's the applicant's narrative?
I don't know, I just have it,
The applicant's narratives are included with the agency comments, so we have to find the right applicant's narrative that he's referring to. What was your date?
page 9.
Your date, the
It's,
date.
it's a conclusion page, one paragraph.
Okay, but what was your date at the top of the page?
June 23rd, 2020.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
Well, no, I can point out what my, in this conclusion, and was this provided by the applicant? Okay, so in the conclusion, they're saying the result of which will be the establishment of a quality neighborhood, increasing in property values, and harmonious, and this is the key to it, harmonious expansion of the city of Hayden. When I look at a lot of these factors, I don't see harmonious. That's a point. We got that. We got that. We got that. And I know that we've talked about this before, but we have a letter from Alan, the city of Hayden, regarding sewer capacity. And I'll just read a portion of it. And it was dated March 22nd, 2024. It's the will serve for sewer collection and treatment, Battleground subdivision.
Yep, got it.
Yeah, it says, however, this service is, well, It is the intent and willingness of the city of Hayden to serve and treat sewer for the property described in the letter. However, this service is limited based on capacity available at the time of connection in the sewer collection, the city's collection sewer lines and capacities for treatment at the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board. And again, I just want to make the point is that, we don't guarantee capacity, but I think it's something about, again, is this a harmonious addition to our city when, who knows if we'll have enough capacity? We don't guarantee it. Look at that question. I'm getting close, Mayor.
You put my computer to sleep, Matt.
So in conclusion to my, well, we're going to deliberate, so I'll leave that last. But I'm done, thank you, sorry.
Okay. Does another council member wish to ask questions?
I do, oh, go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Okay, so I'd like to piggyback on one comment that Council President Roeder made, and that's on the page 2 of the standards of approval, the findings, and it's talking about the costs. Where is that? That was here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on a different page. Okay, the developer made, I'm on page 6. The developer has made adequate plans to ensure, it's page 6 in the beginning, so. I
Page
don't know if
6
you-
of the staff review, the written
HCC,
recommendation.
1, 2, yeah, 3, 4.
So are you in the executive summary or the staff review? Where are you at?
Beginning, executive summary,
Okay, that's
page 6.
not on that page.
Okay.
I don't have the executive summary up over there. Okay, so on page 6 of the staff, of the executive summary, I didn't bring it up over here because it's in board book.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, it's talking about the developers made adequate plans to ensure that the community will bear no more than its fair share of costs to provide services by paying fees, furnishing land, or providing other mitigation measures for off-site impacts to streets, parks, and other public services within the community. So I was going to ask about the parks. What is the fair share of the cost of the parks? Now, is the city paying for half of the park and the
park development agreement was already an agreed upon deferred park development agreement that was already agreed to by the city council previously.
okay,
And I mean, they're required to follow that as part of this subdivision,
okay.
but it's not specific to this subdivision.
Okay, and so is the city going to be doing the ongoing maintenance
It's a public park.
and
12 acres,
amenities?
in accordance with our Parks Master Plan.
Okay. Also in that same section, in the planning and zoning meeting, there was a lot of talk about sharing capitalization fees and deferred payment of capitalization fees. So the developer was talking about they would not pay the cap fees up per permit, but they would be
I
using
think you're
them
talking
upfront.
about impact fees for the park.
Impact
fees, and
Well,
that
I'm
was
talking also about the,
sewer cap fees?
yes, sewer
No-
cap fees.
No request has been
No
received.
request on the sewer cap
for
fees?
Sewer cap fee reimbursement or reduction at this point in time.
So there was talk about the intersections being put in, or lights, signals being put in, and those costs were
And
going
that's
to be.
all related to whatever comes out of the transportation impact analysis requirements of them as part of that. So as of right now, this project has already constructed 5 lanes wide of road in front of the apartments as part of their required mitigation, the 5 lanes, which you can't see very well under here, is already widened in front of that. Had this subdivision come in before any development had occurred out there, they would have had to construct that width of Hayden Avenue, but that's already built up there. They've already put in part of the Carrington going north and south, and they've already built part of Dunkirk as part of the development for the apartments. So that's why you don't see those additional required conditions, because they're already built.
Okay, and there was also talk about a developer could build intersections or build signals for less.
Potentially,
So
that's what they say.
there's not an agreement in place for our capitalization fees to be
Impact fees.
impact fees.
Not today, because we don't know what the peer analysis from our consultant is going to say about their transportation impact study, what that update, we don't have that review back.
Okay, all right. And I'd also like to talk about the properties on Bean Avenue. 2 property owners came into the planning and zoning meeting and gave public comment. And I would just like to know what's going to happen, especially with that property on the corner of Carrington and Bean. Is that going to have to be annexed and have some of their private property being taken away?
A request for annexation has been brought forward with this subdivision request.
Okay.
You would see that first. It's a request of you if you would like to annex them. And if you choose not to, you don't have to. Bean does not go all the way through and was identified at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that Post Falls Highway District was not looking for it to connect at this point in time either. So there's no movement to connect Bean to Carrington today as part of this application.
Okay, so Carrington, at that point, would it be the full width that it's supposed to be at the end, or?
It would be their half width
Their half width.
of Carrington, their half of the road.
Okay, I'm just concerned about the private property owners' rights, this one house on the corner of Bean, that they wouldn't be,
They butt up against Post Falls right-of-way, Post Falls Highway District right-of-way today, and that Post Falls Highway District right-of-way butts up to city limits.
okay.
So they have that separation today between their property and the city limits.
Okay. And then Carrington, is that going to extend all the way down to Prairie?
It is in the transportation plan, it is shown to connect all the way to Prairie.
Okay, because I think we're going to see the same difficulty down towards Prairie with the church, because they might, in order to get the width for Carrington. Okay,
Not a part of the record of this subdivision, so I
Okay.
can't talk to that.
okay, that's what I have for right now.
Thank you, Sandy. Who's next?
That would be me, and last. Okay, Donna, I'm going to try to keep my questions short and to the point. Thank you for your patience. I want some clarity on something that Councilman White asked, because I would have asked it in a bit of a different direction. It does have to do with the right-of-way for Carrington. Now, in the P&Z meeting, Mr. Mario Marchetti, who is right there at that corner of where Carrington meets Bean, so it would be the northeast corner, he came in and spoke about his objection to this because of that a widening of Carrington at that point would require him to take out trees on the east side of his property. The response at that time, which I found interesting, was the principle of adverse possession does not apply. And so I did a little, I'm not going to beleaguer it. I think everybody who cares about this understands, but basically those trees, as I understand, do not exist on his actual property, but they're in this no man's land, which is
not no
Carrington,
man's
right?
land, but.
No, it is, actually, because if you look at the GIS map, I clicked right on it, and there is no data for who owns
That's
that.
because it's unimproved right-of-way owned by Post Falls Highway District.
Okay, so that I didn't know
Yep.
until you told me.
Yep.
So is there any claim by this gentleman that's about adverse?
Property is not a part of this application, nor, and there was also a rebuttal by the applicant at the end of the planning and zoning meeting, if you watched it.
I did, I watched it, and that's what I just
that
cited.
Because of what Post Falls Highway District has commented, that it would not be expanding across into Bean.
Okay, so that was the final,
Right.
and I pardon.
And the city
for-
of Hayden doesn't have any control over what happens with that property from that commenter because it is not in the city of Hayden boundaries.
So, forgive me, I'm being obtuse, and I just want clarity. So,
That property.
since we are deciding and dividing up how the land gets divided up, I think this is relevant. I just want to understand, is there any part of this plan that impacts that section of Carrington where right-of-way would have to be taken that would overlap?
That is the Kootenai County and the Post Falls Highway District that is not within the jurisdiction of the city of Hayden to even comment on.
Really? Okay, well, it was brought up in the meeting, I guess.
Yeah, you are correct. So the half-width roadway that's within this project is city of Hayden. So you can see where it's in the city boundaries and then where it's not in the city
Yeah.
boundaries. So where his property is in Kootenai County,
Yes,
and that roadway is Post Falls Highway District jurisdiction.
but didn't Post Falls Highway District say that the city should annex that property?
They commented to that, and we've had that conversation. That is not happening. There's not an
Okay.
annexation before you.
Okay,
So it's not no man's land, it's actually right away, but it's not.
And that we have
forgive
no
me,
control.
wrong terminology, it just, it's a big question mark on the GIS
A
data.
lot of times where unimproved right-of-way is confused with property lines, and whether or not those have a position relative to that, has to do with property lines.
Okay. Sorry. Believe it or not, Mr. Mayor, that's the only question I had.
Okay.
Do you have a comment? Before you start deliberations, I'd like to go back and reiterate the standards of approval, if I may.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll make my comments.
Okay.
So again, council, lots of great questions here tonight, but you're not here deciding. A lot of the things that you have questions on will be answered between, or normally in land use decisions, determined between the preliminary plat and the final plat, which is to say, you'll absolutely have time to render a second decision that by then should have answered your
I'm not sure
questions.
that's accurate.
Is that not accurate?
No.
Thanks. Help me out.
There might be some decision, there'll be some decision-making throughout site review.
Right.
But that's not going to come to council. So,
Right, but council will still see final plat?
final plat, yes. But
Okay.
final plat is simply saying that all of the conditions that were put in place at the time of preliminary plat have been met, and that administratively now the final plat should be approved.
Yes.
By council.
Yes.
But a lot of the questions tonight really do impact a decision on the preliminary plat, and they are a part of the already existing conditions of approval.
Right.
Most of them.
All right, so I guess we have a mixed bag is what I'm trying to say. I guess I was trying to assure council that of all their good questions tonight, prior to them addressing a final plat, all those questions will have come before them and be answered.
They will be. They will not come before them,
Well, they'll be part of a
final plat
a
approval.
final plat
process.
approval process is what I'm getting. It's not like they're going to be hidden from it. They're not going to know whether the street analysis was done. They're not going to be known whether all the things they're bringing up. That's all. Also, I did have a question for you, Donna. During the, and a lot of this has to do with the public here and of course on the internet. For those that didn't watch the planning and zoning meeting, the aquifer was discussed in detail. And there are plans, the developer has proposed potentially in support of traffic mitigation. I guess I'm just curious why that wasn't thrown up as part of our presentation tonight.
The traffic plans that, say that again?
The parts of the planning and zoning meeting.
Right.
That addressed the developer's plans to address the impact of this potential development to the area. It was done during P and Z, but didn't really see it tonight, so I was kind of curious.
Because most of it is still based on how the peer review analysis comes back from the transportation impact analysis.
Okay,
So for the public, the peer review analysis and the traffic impact analysis is going to state by the traffic experts, here is the impact of this development on transportation, both around its own boundaries as well as offsite. So that traffic impact analysis is going to state what their offsite mitigation impact is to this traffic corridor and what the suggested responsibility of the developer for payment of that. We have the traffic impact analysis and we know what that initially has articulated. What we don't have back is our peer review to say, yes, that's correct, or we think it should be a little bit different. If you haven't read a traffic impact analysis, I highly suggest you use one for some bedtime reading, but it really does, the experts really do a good job of walking through all of the anticipated impacts and the proportional cost to the developer as well as the city in all of that analysis as well as impact. So it's hard to really get a good grasp on the technicality of what that is, but I just want you to know that it's more than a letter that just says, this is how many trips and this is a suggested response. It's a very detailed analysis of the traffic impacts and the TIA is oftentimes made a part of a public record even when it's final and you can read them.
and the reason I asked, or the reason I brought that up is simply, I don't want the public to think that council simply looking at a developer dumping a bunch of houses or asking to divide land to dump a bunch of houses, that indeed traffic circles, stoplights was all part of the discussion.
So the traffic impact analysis is 20 megs. It is actually here, I can actually open it up.
No, I'm just.
If you're interested. But
Just curious,
that is what's being sent and is being reviewed at the moment. So it's like several hundred pages long.
Okay, so you wanted to bring up,
It's important
standards.
that when you make your findings, that you go back and look at your standards. The standards are based on the standards that existed at the time of vesting. And so the very first paragraph is really important because this is what you kind of have to base your approvals on. The applicant has demonstrated to the satisfaction of the city engineer and the responsible agency that all existing and proposed infrastructures meet or can be constructed within 2 years after the date of the city council approval of the master development agreement, which approved the preliminary plat to meet the following standards. And so that's why I reference back to you, page 115 of the staff analysis is the city engineer's memo and the public agency comments that began on page 120 of the staff analysis. I point you back there because any conditions that you may add to your findings as additional conditions as identified here need to go back to the city engineer's memo and the public agency comments, I believe, unless Fonda tells me otherwise, to substantiate unless you provide other findings. And then all of those itemized ones that are below that are in your staff analysis. So I just want to point back that those two pieces of code are there.
okay, so it sounds like we're ready to move into deliberations.
Can I
I
ask
only-
one more question?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm trying to wrap my brain about this one question is, the applicant during the P and Z meeting said that there are 2 intersections that have failed or have failed. And it's their engineer, and is it Mr. Whipple, or are you Mr. Whipple? Mr. Kimball, I'm sorry. And you were the ones that said there were 2 intersections that have failed.
You can't address him.
New evidence.
Okay, well, it was in a P and Z meeting, so that's where I got the statement. So this is my question is if we have 2 intersections that have failed, which I believe is true because it was said in the P and Z meeting by the applicant, then if they're going to mitigate only their responsibility of impact on those 2 failed intersections, are we going to get, instead of an F, and improve it to a D minus? In other words, we don't have the money to fix those intersections, and they're only going to put a little bit of money, in my mind, that could even totally fix this section. So,
Part of the question about funding, that's why we pushed the funding question off until after the peer analysis is finished, and they would have to enter into a separate agreement. Part of the question is it a mitigation that can be paid for out of impact fees? So is it on our impact fee capital improvement plan? Is the intersection not on the impact fee capital improvement plan? In other words, it falls under an extraordinary impact. And then what are their proportionate shares of one or both of those? So it's an entirely different conversation about funding than what we have here at the moment.
And that agreement will come to council.
And that agreement will come before council.
right, and I want the public to understand kind of the thinking. We're trying to fix the roads, but we keep adding more development, and we can't fix the problems we have now, and you add more development, they're gonna pay a little bit to fix it. I don't see how we're getting ahead. I'm just making that comment because that's a generalized comment about any subdivision, and this will also be part of that compounding problem.
Ed?
Yeah, tacking on to Matt there. And I'm trying to remember, because there's been a couple different issues that have come up related to that, those intersections, those streets, those improvements in there. And it seems to me, and if not, cut me off, that there have been discussions among multiple developers in the area as to some sort of a joint effort to mitigate a lot of those intersections and roadway issues.
It is part of this record from the planning and zoning hearing.
Right.
The applicant made representations that they are in multiple
Right, that's where it came from
developers are
then.
in communication for improvement of the entire corridor.
Right.
That is correct.
And that's kind of my point, that not only, there's, like I said, there's multiple issues in that area right now, and we've had multiple applicants, I believe, indicate that they are working in conjunction, as I believe it was pointed out, for somewhat of a private venture improvement of this area, rather than the lengthy, more expensive bureaucratic process that is normal. So, and I hope that when this peer review, and analysis comes together, that will be part of the equation as to how, if and how these improvements can be paid for.
Okay. Donna, could I ask, can we have the slide up of council's, whether they want to make a motion to approve, to delay, or and so we're going to enter deliberations now. I'm going to ask council that as you deliberate, please tie your comments to the standards of approval. We have the responsibility to show why we're approving something, and if your intention is to support or deny, we have the obligation to state how the request does not meet the standards of approval, and to provide guidance to the applicant as to what he or she has to do to meet our standards of approval. Does everybody understand that okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so floor is yours. Who wants to shoot first?
I have nothing to comment.
No comment? You ready to make a motion?
Nope, want to hear from my colleagues.
All right, fair enough. Ed?
I'm going to wait.
Sandy?
I'm gonna wait.
Okay, all right. Are you sure you want me to go?
I'll go because I'll make it brief, I guess. And again, cut me off here, because I think what I'm about to say is going to tread on a fine line here, but
Just, I guess I will caution all of you, your deliberations are intended to discuss the findings that you intend to make
Yep.
as they apply to the standards of approval, utilizing facts only in the record.
well, that's kind of what my question, comment, whatever you want, however you want to call this. I personally have several questions regarding the potential litigation aspect of some things that I've heard tonight. And I think we may need an executive session to answer those questions, because what I'm hearing and seeing, I need to understand if there is a potential for litigation and or ramifications, because litigation gets expensive, and I don't want the taxpayers to be funding litigation if it can be avoided through some form of executive session where we, whoever has questions, because this is getting dicey to me. And I don't want to be involved in setting off something that may cost taxpayers money.
So Ed, just for clarification, you might be most inclined right now to make a motion to continue after hearing what your peers have to say?
Most likely, yeah.
Okay, and certainly we could accommodate an executive session at the next meeting, should we need to continue this process. Matt, you want to go second?
And for clarification on that, for the public, no decision related to this can be made in executive session and would not be.
Yeah, no backdoor deals.
Right.
You gotta say starboard first.
I'm trying to tighten things up.
I
Matt.
know. Okay, my inclination is to make a motion to continue based on, the aquifer is mentioned in our record. And I would like to see an aquifer impact study done so that I understand what impact this development has.
Okay, so just so we are clear on that, if the council were to approve an additional study, that will be reopening the record. This will go back to planning and zoning for another public hearing, and then we'll come back to you again, just so you understand the process.
I think the aquifer is pretty important.
I'm
So-
just outlining the process.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I guess the counterweight to that is whether or not there's a condition reasonable to offset that concern that could be brought forward as part of the final plat.
And I want to continue this also because we don't have a completed TIA by our consultant. I think that's important. We have that in hand. So we know where we stand on traffic. Also, I'd like to know confirmation that whether this subdivision is in Lakeland School District or not. It's, we have a letter from them and then I'd like to have an updated airport map to see where, because I know that they do change those different impact lines outside the airport, and I'd just like to see how that relates to the development. And for those reasons, I just have some concerns about overloading of roads, public safety, the school district, the TIA, the airport, and the aquifer protection. So that's why I can make a motion if you want.
Well, I'd rather we all deliberate first, but
Okay,
when the time is right. So I'm hearing you say you are also inclined to make a motion to continue.
yes.
All right, Sandy?
I'm also inclined to continue. I would like time to look over the planning and zoning meeting again and confirm that we won't be sharing fees and that, and our neighbors on Bean won't be impacted by
Okay.
the growth. Thank
Okay.
you.
Tom, your inclination?
Well, could I ask Councilman DePriest, you said that we're bordering on litigation. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I
Because I
don't-
hadn't thought about that.
I agree, but I don't think it would be wise to discuss those concerns
Okay.
because of
Got it.
the issue.
Liability.
The liability issue, yeah.
Okay.
That's my concern about, is the liability.
Yeah, I
potential.
understand. Okay. I see three colleagues who wish to continue, and I assume that even for a fraction of the reasons, they must be well-founded and legitimate. I want to hear more about what they have to say.
Okay. You want to add anything or make a motion?
If you're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, just one thing regarding the school district. Can you put up the map of the plat map or whatever that's called? And I think, although, again, I'm not certain, but common sense would tell me, what is that 40-acre parcel directly to the south? Who owns that?
Coeur d'Alene School District.
I'm going to assume that it's highly likely that Coeur d'Alene School District, if they own that land there and are planning schools there, that it's going to be within the district, but I still think we should verify it. But just that kind of strikes me as common sense.
Is there any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
So for clarification, if there's going to be a motion to continue, your deliberations and your decision will continue until the next meeting. At the next meeting, you will still have to decide, are you prepared to approve this with the conditions that have been presented to you or with additional conditions? Or do you wish to deny it? If you wish to deny it, or council decides to deny it, Idaho code requires that you make those findings of denial, and then you give the applicant direction on what they can do to be successful with their application. Additionally, if council's decision is going to be to request additional studies of any kind, that will be an opening of the record. This will go back to planning and zoning for another public hearing because the applicant has a right to rebut and or comment on any of the studies that might come forward. So I'm just outlining process for you so you understand what a continuation means to the next meeting.
Rhonda, can you also elaborate on talking to each other between now and the next
You
meeting?
absolutely cannot speak to each other between now and then, and nor can you have any conversations with any member of the public or the applicant or affected parties or anyone. You can communicate with me, you can communicate with city staff.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing to help with the date, somebody.
Whatever the date of the next meeting.
well, we need an executive session between now and then, unless you want to do executive session prior to or as part of a prelude to the next meeting.
We can do that.
Lisa?
I'm getting the date.
Well, I was going to
November
ask, would you
26th.
prefer that, or would you prefer to spend the next city council meeting having an executive session and then continue this in the following
I think it's a matter
December?
of choice that council wishes to take. You've directed staff to look at off Tuesdays of council meeting weeks for the potential of dealing with other business of the city that are special in nature, I'll call it, and this might be one of those.
I'm
You
not
can-
available next week.
Oh, never mind.
See, that's, okay.
Sorry about that.
But from a workload on the staff's perspective, it doesn't matter to you if we put both of these items on the next meeting or whether we break them out over the next two meetings?
It's hard to know exactly what the next meeting is going to shape up to be like from a standpoint of timing, but we can certainly accommodate, so.
Well,
Might make for a longer meeting.
the reason I'm asking is simply that if out of executive session, staff has work to do, then we'd just be canceling it again and punting it again. I think it would be smarter to,
Then let's just do this in the.
let's have it in the December meeting.
December 10th.
So Matt, that's my recommendation, just so that we gives us a meeting to have an executive session, and then if there's any work or questions that need to be answered between that and the date of the hearing or of this agenda item, that we're not, again, punting it a second time.
Sure. So my motion is that we continue this to December 10th, you said, and we will include a executive session as part of the meeting.
Well, we'll do executive session.
Executive session's going to be the meeting before.
I don't think that needs to be part of your
No,
motion.
it doesn't have to be part of your
I'll
motion.
second that.
Is that a,
All you're doing is continuing this deliberation and decision to your council meeting on December 10th.
Okay, there we go. That's my motion.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay. Is anyone leaving as a result? All right, it's going to give you a minute. Okay, our next item is originally listed as 6B, and for council, staff and I are asking you to approve the addition of a single staff building inspector and plans examiner position. Lisa, are you going to, or
Did we
Sean?
lose Sean?
She was
Or
here.
Sean is.
She just stepped out. I think she's coming back, if you want to say.
I can introduce the
Okay.
subject matter.
Thank you.
And if you are able to, oh,
There she is.
You're on, Sean.
I think the point that we'll try to make really quick while she gets ready is the graph that was included with the map, or excuse me, with the memo, showing you our revenues over our expenses as it relates to labor will be a key component of the question, the why behind the question that we have before you. So with that, Sean, unless you have me, agents, with anything else.
No, I think the graph speaks for itself. When you have this much work and this many people, you are at a deficit. These people are exhausted and they are ready to go somewhere else to find peace and happiness. So I think if we don't find a way to move that blue up a little, we are going to have problems with our inspections. They're going to get pushed out and we're going to find, it's too much to carry that much of a load with the people that we have. So any questions I'm willing to answer, but it's,
I will share additionally, over the last year, I've received comments off and on from folks needing this service as to the efficiency or the weight that we make them
Yeah.
wait, and that they're not happy, we can definitely improve on this area. And council, I really appreciate your help, adding a body to, help us out.
Questions?
Go ahead.
Thanks for the chart, Sean. All the tables and numbers that you provided at the end, it wasn't helpful to me because I really never got the message of what the bottom line is. If we hire this person, will we be able to meet it with existing budget?
It's outside of our budget, but the fees that we will receive for building will cover the cost of this. So it's money that's there. It's not money that we put in salaries, but there's money in fees that we're getting that covers that.
So will it pay just a portion or all of the
It will
salary?
more than cover.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Yeah,
hear.
I think this is part of, when we talked about our fee schedule a couple weeks ago, we talked about fee-supported services, and this is one of those. I believe there's a small percentage of the overall cost of that particular person that's covered by the enterprise fund, which is our sewer. And that is because they're augmented staff on occasion to help sewer in some capacity. So but when we think about the 95% of the remaining portion of that budget, or excuse me, that salary being covered by incoming fees, we're not subsidizing it with general fund dollars. By that, I mean property tax dollars. So this is to me, a no-brainer when it comes to relative income to expenses. I had Sean do a comparison looking backwards over the number of years, because if we're seeing a consistent trend where our income is well exceeding our cost of providing that service, then clearly we have, a challenge that we need to overcome with our staffing. And so we're at that point now where if we look at this, we ended last year's planning and community development's income that was surprisingly high for the amount of what we call unearned income. So that income that came in relative to applications or building permits, that sort of got shelved waiting for that work to commence. And so if we bring in that augmented staff, we already have that money sitting there that we didn't spend last year that can be augmented initially with this. And then of course we anticipate the biggest fear of any employer when we look at creating a new position to help offset the workload is the sustainability. And we can only look in the rear to see what we have historically done, but as we project out to the future, we're going to look at what we have seen as far as relative development within the community, and we're not seeing a downward trend at this point. So at this point, I think it's a wise move for us to consider the impact of our employees and the amount of workload that they have with some augmented staff, so.
So if I were to condense that, you see on the horizon a permanent need for a new person,
I don't see the trend going away.
period.
Correct,
And this person will be staff, not contract.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 6A. Is it still 6A?
6B.
6B, consideration of hiring a building inspector and plans examiner.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Our next item, Brian Harrison has been nominated to fill a vacant Public Safety Commission position. Brian comes with my endorsement and in approval from our previous mayor and our Public Safety Commission Chair. Any questions on 6C? Does anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion that we approve Brian Harrison to serve on the Public Safety Commission.
Okay. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a break until 7:05. We'll resume at 7:05 sharp. Okay, we're resuming our meeting, and our agenda item tonight is request city council to allow the mayor to approve final plats and accept public infrastructure contingent upon 7 staff-generated terms for Trail Ridge first and second edition phases. Legal, I believe Tom and Matt are recused from this agenda item?
correct.
That is correct.
For the public, it's because they have recused themselves on all decision points in the past, and so that continues through the completion of the project. And so because they're recused, they do need to leave the dais and sit in the back of the room.
Thank you. Sorry, Tom.
You have a really nice, member that you can sit next to that.
Somebody you know. And no
I
faces,
appreciate-
no comments, no snorting, no.
All right, so we have some old business we need to take care of. Lisa, who's presenting on this?
I believe the file itself has a memo, and I
Yep.
believe our city engineer's here as well to answer any questions. So we're happy to address any questions. I know there's been some comments ahead of the meeting that council has asked, directed of staff for information regarding the conditions of approval. I want to be clear, it's conditions, not standards of approval, so that we can conclude that those have been satisfactorily met. And with that, I think, I don't know if you have anything else, we provided what we think is the response of adequacy that the city is ready to accept the conditions as being met.
And the approval of a final plat is an administrative decision that is normally on consent, as you all know. This one could not be on the consent calendar because we have 2 council members that need to recuse themselves.
Yep. So Sandy or Ed, do you have any questions for staff?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I think we all received an email this afternoon from Stone Creek HOA.
So this is a closed record,
Yep.
and no public comments will be addressed tonight
Okay,
because it's a final plat.
okay. I have some concerns then
Okay?
that have been brought to me. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I just want to ensure that it looks like item 15 appears to be one of the main issues regarding stormwater flowing off the site and onto other properties. And I just want to verify with staff that, in fact, all of those conditions have been met, have been investigated and met to the approval of staff.
Staff believes that all the conditions of the master development agreement have been met.
Thank you.
And for clarification, Hayden City Code requires that the runoff of storm or other surface water shall not be accelerated with the project and shall not go beyond the exterior boundaries in any more volume than it was previous to the project. So as has been indicated on the record throughout this project, there are expert studies that have been done that have identified that the stormwater does not exceed pre-development flow.
So what I'm hearing through that is that, yes, there is going to be stormwater runoff onto other properties, but it, according to code, is not more than, or by accelerating, does that mean faster or just more than
Not more than or
volume-wise?
faster.
Okay, but yes,
That's what the code
there is
says.
going to be some runoff, but it's not going to be any more than prior to.
That is the requirement of Hayden City Code, and we rely on our professional engineers, both in the applicant side of things from the design standpoint, and then on our side from the review standpoint. So when we consider both of those perspectives, and we rely on our city engineer to review the adequacy of what we've received from the applicant, that is the decision that we've gotten to this point, as you heard from the city engineer, was that it is satisfactorily met.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy?
Yes, I would, I don't see any documentation on here that the fire road has been dedicated, the ingress egress has been.
It's been my understanding that was with the first plat, correct?
The road going up the hill
Yes.
is not required until the 4th phase
To be constructed.
to be constructed.
But it is
The
dedicated.
right-of-way has been dedicated for that road in the original final plat of this subdivision. And the road going up the hill is not required to be constructed until the fourth phase.
Do we have the right-of-way guaranteed for that yet?
Yes.
Okay. So, was the right-of-way dedicated at the time of the first plat?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. So I didn't see anything on the map, the GIS map, showing a dedication of that road. Is that something that's supposed to be?
I don't really understand your question.
Okay, the map that the city uses to show plats and properties?
Are we talking the final plat?
No.
She means the Kootenai County record.
The Kootenai County map, it shows the road, Rocking R Road, up through the,
So the county GIS system probably just hasn't caught up yet. I'm not sure the county GIS system actually shows the original final plat of Trail Ridge and the lots that have already been platted.
it
If
shows.
you look in the packet, the road going up the hill actually is shown on the final plat of Trail Ridge first. Do you have my memo in front of you?
Yes,
Just start thumbing through it until you get to the Trail Ridge First Edition. It'll be kind of hard to see a sheet number, but it shows the entire Trail Ridge First Edition plat.
okay.
And the Rocking R Road is clearly defined on there. And the original Trail Ridge subdivision, that's where it was platted.
Right.
And we just confirmed that the county maps do show the dedication of that right-of-way, but you have to be zoomed in at a certain scale. And I'd be happy to bring it up to you if you would like to see it.
Yes, please.
And if you wanted me to put it on the screen, I could do it as well.
No, I'm talking about beyond here.
That's not the same subdivision, it's a different.
Right, that's the Marks Road, and that's
Different subdivisions. Mark's Ranch subdivision.
Marks Ranch. So that's the road I was looking for, because if we're going to have the fire ingress egress road that we need to protect us from fires, because the fire marshal said that we can't build past 30 houses without that fire road built. We can't issue more than 30 housing permits.
I think you're convoluting the two different applications and preliminary plats. And so what you are looking at right now is have the conditions of approval from preliminary plat on, and this is phase 2 and 3. Phase 2 and 3 of Trail Ridge been met exclusively. That's all you can consider right now on this final plat.
But it's true that Trail Ridge cannot get a 31st permit to build a house without that fire road, that ingress egress.
That's not the way I interpreted the fire district's letter. I don't have it in front of me, but I still believe that the applicant has met all conditions of master development agreement.
Okay, because I talked to the fire marshal and he said that.
You cannot utilize information outside of a closed record that you have right now.
Can I just quote the fire code? Can I read the fire code?
So in relationship to which condition are you looking at in in regard to these.
Well, I don't have the whole
preliminary
conditions of
plats.
approval in front of me. This memo just says, just gives me a few things, and it says, it appears to be in conformance, but I don't have all of the standards or the
Conditions.
conditions of approval in front of me. So I was just, I was asking about the fire marshal's rule that they're on one or two family dwelling residential developments where there are more than 30 dwelling units accessed from a single public or private fire apparatus access road, and all dwelling units, let's see, well, it says here, I'm sorry, excuse me. Development of one or two family dwellings where the number of dwelling units exceeds 30 shall be provided with two separate and approved fire access roads.
So those are dwelling units, not lots. You're approving a final plat for lots right now.
Right.
Okay.
So with these lots, we cannot issue a 31st housing permit.
The city staff is required to, you were looking at me, did you want to say something?
I believe there are two
There are two
fire
fire
access roads on there right
Then
now.
please articulate.
On the east and west side.
Where are the two fire access roads?
Rocking our road and.
Maroon Creek.
Well, Maroon Creek Drive, Creek Drive.
Marine Creek doesn't count.
That's right.
Marine Creek
According to the
doesn't
fire
count.
department, they need to provide for a future access for a secondary way out. And we've got that in numerous locations, We have that in numerous locations from the fire department, where if you have a phased project, you have to provide for it to continue. Both Trail Ridge and Marks Ranch have this road that will continue. Marks Ranch is currently under construction, and so is Trail Ridge. So that condition has been met in accordance with the fire department. So I'm unclear as far as, if you could.
And they're signing the plat.
And they're signing, no, they don't sign the plat, fire department doesn't sign the plat.
So I'm just wanting to know, have a guarantee that a 31st building permit will not be issued.
That's not the decision point. The decision point is are there two ingress and egress as required by building code? What city
Okay.
staff is saying, yes, there are.
Okay, and the fire marshal disagrees with that, so,
Not according to the documents that we have in the record.
no, Marine Creek doesn't count.
I'm not suggesting that, I'm saying that the documents that we have in the record and the fire department's approval of the construction plans don't support that decision, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, let's see. So have all of the conditions of approval been met concerning the water and the runoff and all these other concerns that the neighbors have?
It's our belief that all the conditions of the master development agreement have been made.
Okay.
I don't know how many other ways to say
Okay.
it.
Fonda, could you please just explain to me what our options are tonight on accepting or not accepting this?
So it's the approval of a final plat as indicated as an administrative decision. So your actual substantive decision comes at preliminary plat phase. So it's your city staff is presenting the final plat to you and saying that based on all of the conditions of approval that you put in place early on, city council, and the conditions of approval that were part of the preliminary plat, that those conditions have been met and everything, the infrastructure's been built out and it's ready for you to accept the infrastructure and allow them to actually create the parcels that were identified.
Okay, but what would be what would happen with a no vote? What is the,
So you have two council members who are voting.
yes,
And so if you have split, then the mayor's going to break your tie.
okay.
Or
But what
if you both vote
happens?
no, then you will need to articulate what conditions of approval you believe are not met and what facts you're relying on to support that.
Okay. So if there's a no vote,
A no, oh, anyways, I'm sorry.
then can you explain to me what judicial review is and what judicial review or hearing examiner would,
So there's no hearing examiner on this decision because it's not a hearing.
okay,
So the only time the applicant is entitled to a hearing examiner is when it's a public hearing, and that's not what this is.
okay.
So again, this is an administrative approval, so it would be from an administrative perspective, you don't believe that the conditions of approval for the final plat have been met, and that has to be supported with actual factual findings that are in the record.
Okay. Well, I'm not convinced that all the standards of approval have been met, especially with this fire road, because I had different findings from the fire marshal saying that it had to be, the secondary road had to be the northward road. So I don't feel like these have been met.
So I know I'm confused. Do we have an issue because a council person saying they don't believe the conditions have been met, but the evidence that they're using to support that, you said, is not part of the record which they're supposed to make the decision?
So
Can we pull up the fire marshal's letter?
I don't know what letter you're referring to.
Well, it was in the standards of approval, or in the first.
In the conditions of approval?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought I had it with me. I don't see it right now. It would be in the original documents from the fire marshal. He stated that it had to have two.
Why don't you just make a motion to table the decision?
Okay, I will make a motion.
Obtain additional information regarding the
Okay.
ingress egress.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to table this decision so we can find out more.
Is there a second? I am not hearing a second.
Motion fails.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff? Okay, so the next step is then for council to deliberate. Just for clarity and for summary for the public, a preliminary plat was put out. Council approved that preliminary plat with conditions. The city staff has now come back and said, council, the conditions of which you approved the preliminary plat have been met. Now will you please approve the final plat? That is literally the process tonight. So that is what is being asked of council. So if we can deliberate with that frame in mind, and I haven't said anything wrong, let's proceed, please. Who wants to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay.
Based on the record and the process stage that we're at now, and the fact that I trust the staff in what they tell us, and that if what they're telling us is incorrect, there is recourse. There's always recourse. That if what they are not telling us can be verifiably proven to be not fact, then recourse can be taken. I'm gonna motion to approve the Trail Ridge subdivision first and second edition final plats and acceptance of infrastructure.
Okay. Sandy, do you have anything to deliberate? So that's not a motion. He's just saying he's going to make a motion because we have to finish deliberations.
Right.
Yes, I'm not convinced that the standards of approval have been met. I need to.
Conditions
of approval, thank you, have been met. I need to look at the fire marshal's report again and also find out if the water problems have been resolved and that more than 30 homes won't be permitted until the road is ready.
Do we have a way to overcome this letter that was it part of the preliminary plat hearing? Do we have, is that where the document?
I'm guessing she's referring to the letter that the root of one of the conditions of approval.
Do we have that letter?
Can we bring the fire marshal in and have him talk to us at a future meeting?
That's your choice. That's not our choice.
Okay.
Well, but you said this hearing, it's closed, right?
Yeah,
So they're not supposed to introduce new evidence to this, correct?
that's correct.
Okay, I found.
Okay.
It says here, the secondary access road as depicted on connectivity exhibit B drawing 19.089 with future connectivity to Lancaster Road through Marks Ranch subdivision is approved as submitted. The secondary fire apparatus access road shall meet the conditions of Appendix D, 1071. So, development of one or two family dwellings where the number of dwelling units exceeds 30 shall be approved with two separate and approved fire apparatus access roads. And so those two access roads need to be one going north and one going south, and not maroon.
So I think we might be talking about two different things, whether or not they're platted for and whether or not they're built, and the timing of each of those. Are you concerned that the Marks Ranch subdivision doesn't have a design or a preliminary plat that provides for the secondary ingress egress?
Yes, that's part of it. And also just assuring that the 31st house won't be
Already approved that.
permitted until we have those roads.
So we're gonna have to pull up the Marks Ranch preliminary plat to show you you've already approved that secondary access road?
Okay.
It was a condition of the Marks Ranch subdivision at the time that you approved it for this road to connect to Lancaster, both for multimodal pathway connection from the south to Lancaster, as well as for this road connectivity for Marks to have a second ingress egress. But the very first sentence of the letter that you read talks about future connectivity. And that's the point, that the connectivity will be built in the future. It is the fourth phase of this project, and it's some phase of the Marks Ranch that's going to get built. So when both of these subdivisions are completed, that secondary route from here to Lancaster will be completed in its entirety. And that's what both of those fire letters say, that these subdivisions as phased with that secondary way out is approved. If they had cut it off and not made a connection, then the fire department would have said, no, you don't have that other route proposed, but it's a future connection road.
So just to clarify, the existence of those roads is not a prerequisite to a final plat being approved.
Yeah, I think, I jump in here, I don't think that you can condition a plat contingent upon another development being constructed in its entirety for that plat to go forward. That would be essentially what we would call in the planning world a condition of death, right? So the fire marshal, likely in his response, tied the future planning of this development. Again, I wasn't here during the time, so I'm only surmising, using my planning experience, that they would have said, you need to have ins and outs to protect if there's one road that's blocked due to an emergent issue, that people can get out of there. And right now, though, there are connections of roads that provide for alternative routes. Next, you have the planning of a future connection to Lancaster that would provide an alternative route in addition to the existing infrastructure that's being placed. And again, this is just my opinion. So at this point, if you were to circle back with anybody that's an expert in this area, they would likely ratify what I just said in some form or fashion. So.
Okay. Does that clarify your concern?
It does not. I need more time on this, Mr. Mayor, please. I ask for.
And at this point, if they were going to redirect, the information that needs to be brought forward from staff perspective. I don't know that it's wise of us to be going out individually and engaging members of our respective agencies. So with that, I would ask that if this is a postponement, that you direct staff on what that is that we're supposed to bring back and how it's different than what you currently have now.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move for a postponement on this. So that I could gather more information on the,
So
on
what,
standards of approval.
sure, so what information from the city do you need?
I would come up with a list.
I think that needs to be defined
It has to
today.
be defined tonight if you're going to continue it.
Well, the ingress egress, the fact that the 31st home can't be deeded or
You're not approving building permits, you're only addressing the division of land
Right.
into parcels.
Right, well, I'm concerned about the future of the area, the people, their health, their safety, their welfare.
That decision point and that standard was evaluated at the time of preliminary plat. Granted, most of us weren't here at that time, but it was still, that's when that standard was evaluated. This is not, a final plat decision is not evaluating standards. It's whether or not the existing conditions were met.
Ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, fire away.
With respect to what council just said, this is was there a written decision or anything like this on the first? Okay. And it kind of ties into a question that was asked earlier. I think I know the answer, but, okay, let's just say we now go back and in effect reverse the decision on the first approval. What's likely to happen?
Well, you can't reverse.
That's, if we were to do that, or to violate, whatever, ignore the decision, the first decision that was made, what's likely to happen?
Well, the applicant's gonna bring suit against the city.
Yeah, they were given entitlement.
This is an entitlement.
Yeah,
They were given entitlement to this plat.
you can't take it away now.
Pursuant to meeting the standards, and as reasonably as been stated tonight, from the city's perspective, those conditions have been met. So in the event that you disagree with the city staff, they would have to, as mentioned by council, we would have to have direct information in the record as to what that is, not concerns, but actual evidence in the record to show that those conditions have not been met. And
Or
at
a
this point-
specific request of city staff as to what you'd like to see to prove that a particular condition has not been met or has been met.
Yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Well, I would like to look over the conditions of approval, all of them, and just look at them one by one and see if they've been met, including the ingress
Mr. Mayor,
egress.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. At this point, who would be the deciding factor as to recommending whether conditions have been met? Is it the staff doing that, or is it the council? Because at this point, we would need direction on whether or not we're stepping back and allowing council to interpret those conditions being met, so that we don't put ourselves in a position of having to make recommendations consistently over and over again that are
I understand.
Corrected.
Sandy, I'm just going to step out here and let you know what I'm observing. I might not be right. I think what we've got is, an issue is the city staff has said the conditions council put on this plat have been met. And I think that's being mixed up with, do I want 31 homes here? Am I looking at roads? Those are all important things to our city. We all care about that stuff, as you mentioned, health, welfare, and safety. But it's mixing up what is the real decision. The real decision tonight is city council gave our city staff a list of requirements to meet. And the city staff has come back and said, yes, council, we have done as you asked. And so all we're saying is we're acknowledging that. Thank you, staff, for meeting the conditions we do. I think we're mixing that decision up with, do we want houses here and do we want roads? That's not the question and all of your questions seem to be based on that instead of what's before us. That's just an observation. I'm not sure exactly what you're thinking. I think staff is confused right now because they felt like they've given you a product that says, we've done what you've asked. Why aren't you agreeing with us? And you really can't say why. So does that help?
Yes, I'm just concerned about the welfare of the citizens and the fire, road, and
Right.
things like that. Yes,
Right.
I'm concerned.
And that's all great, but what staff's asking for tonight is simply, are the conditions of the primary plat, have they been met? and that's kind of an apples and oranges kind of thing. They're both important, but it's not the piece of fruit that's before us.
But I would also like to ask Fonda, our city attorney, if she would explain what a judicial review is, and if that is something that would help us too.
So this decision isn't going to lead to a petition for judicial review.
Okay.
A denial of a final plat, if the applicant believes that you made an arbitrary and capricious decision, is going to lead straight to a district court takings claim.
That's going to cost taxpayers money, yes?
That is, yes, not covered by your insurance.
Okay.
Okay.
Also not covered by our council, civil council. We'd have to hire outside counsel to
Well,
do this.
I can handle it for you, but it's not within the contract you would have with me. It would be at my regular hourly rate.
Thank you. That's all.
But it'd be a defense of, it's not us initiating anything. It would be a defense of that claim.
So would any council member like to make a motion, or is there a need to deliberate more?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Based on the fact that I'm not an expert in any of this field, and I don't believe any of the council is an expert on any of this field, with the ability to go out and make the evaluation if, where did it go? If the conditions have been met, you know, I'm not going to try and micromanage staff. I'm going to trust them, again, and believe that they are diligent in their duties. And I'm going to motion that we approve Trail Ridge subdivision, first and second edition, final plats and acceptance of infrastructure.
Okay, we have a motion. Sandy, are you willing to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion being made? Maybe we get a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White,
No.
Councilmember DePreez.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to, get the rest of council back up. I'm sorry?
I said, get your council members back.
Okay, our next agenda item, hopefully we'll go a little quicker. It's, council, we're requesting that you approve and authorize a settlement with Jerry Bohm supporting the Ramsey Road Extension project. Any questions for staff?
Questions of us?
No, I'm asking council if there are any questions related to acceptance of the resolution. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the resolution authorizing the, let's just say, I'd like to motion the resolution approving and authorizing Bohm settlement.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
Council President Roder,
Yes.
and Councilmember DePreez.
Yes.
Our last main item on the agenda tonight is the ordinance to repeal ordinance 214 in its entirety. The function ordinance 214 fulfilled has been superseded by a resolution passed at our last city council meeting and now should be retired. Our legal counsel will please provide you some basic information to frame tonight's discussion.
Really?
Thanks a lot.
Yes, please, because the agenda item,
Yeah. So the agenda item precipitated with the fact that you have an ordinance 214 that was essentially adopted as a resolution but called an ordinance. And the reason I say that, it was never codified. So your ordinances under Idaho law are codified in your Hayden City Code. This ordinance, because of its age, just was never codified. So it really is, for all intents and purposes, a resolution. So when you adopted your new resolution that outlined your procedure for your consent calendar, in order to clear up the historic record, you need to retire, I like that word, ordinance 214, which should have been called resolution 214, but wasn't. That's the procedural reason for the repealing of 214 for you guys tonight. You have a Hayden City Code, and I don't remember the number off the top of my head. It's at the very beginning of your code where it talks about when your new code was adopted I think 2004-ish, somewhere in there, that it essentially repealed all previous ordinances, and it says that right there, this repeals all previous ordinances. And we could have just relied on that section in Hayden City Code, except for the fact this ordinance, for all intents and purposes, was a resolution and not an ordinance.
So I asked Fauna to do that because we're not here to discuss what has already been discussed, which is the contents of the resolution. The agenda item tonight is to repeal, retire ordinance 214 because it has been replaced by a resolution passed at the last council meeting. That's the frame with which we, or the lens through which we should discuss this agenda item. On this too, it's been a long day. Staff, you've worked very hard. I don't know how quick this will go, so I'm giving you the green light. Alan and Rob and Donna, if you want to go,
That's good, I'm here.
you have the option
He's
of
my code wizard.
having a good night, since I don't think you'll need to be required or necessary for this agenda item. But you're welcome to stay too, I guess.
It's their choice.
So would somebody like to take the lead on this?
Yeah, I'd like to ask for clarification on what.
Right here.
What
right there.
Fonda just said. So, Fonda,
Yes.
forgive me, I know you probably dumbed it down for my pleasure, but I still am confused.
Okay.
Okay. So what you're saying is that at the time ordinance 214 was created, it was or it was not law?
It was not law because it was not codified.
What does that mean?
It didn't make it into the Hayden City Code. So.
Did they think they were passing a law?
I have no idea what they thought at the time.
Well, this
So-
ordinance predated codification.
So it,
14.
What was the purpose of them doing it then in the first place?
so historically, before codification, there was just a difference of definition between ordinance and resolution. We have a clear definition now. So I indicated you have a section in Hayden City Code, it's 1-2-1, that repealed all previous ordinances, and it was in 2002 when this code was adopted, repealed all previous ordinances. We have a clear delineation now between what a resolution does and what an ordinance does, but back when ordinance 214 was adopted, there wasn't a clear resolution, and it was prior to codification. So under our current definition of what does a resolution do and what does an ordinance do, it, for all intents and purposes, is a resolution. It is not an ordinance.
So when it repealed all previous ordinances, you're saying it just wiped out everything. Okay, what happened in the wake of that action?
You have adopted Hayden City Code.
So a whole bunch of new codes came on board?
It took all of the codes that the city had through various ordinances and essentially blended them into one document, which you adopted, so that we had
So-
current information at the
Great.
time.
So ordinance 214 that existed before this action of repealing all, what happened to it?
Well, I think that's the discrepancy that staff's under is because it wasn't brought forward in the codifications and because it mirrored what a resolution would do, the codifiers at the time likely made the decision, and likely staff did as well, that it wasn't an applicable code. But when you start to ask the question about clarity on this, and this is a question that came to me, and I had to make the decision as to whether or not it withstood codification, the question was, could we definitively say it didn't? And that was my answer, was I couldn't definitively say one way or another if it did or didn't satisfy that
Fine.
codification. So we brought forward the resolution as a means to acknowledge what that process is, and cleaning up the ordinance is key to making sure we don't end up in the same scenario where we have two different opinions as to whether or not it satisfied the the repealing or not.
So this seems like a significant piece of information that we were not privy to until 10 minutes ago. Why?
So
Well,
that's actually not
Yeah.
accurate, because in the last meeting, when you guys had talked about it at the previous meeting that I wasn't at, as adopting this as an ordinance, and I said it needs to be a resolution because it's process, and you need to have the ability to change it easily and not have it codified. And if you look at the legal definition of a resolution versus an ordinance, all council-related processes are adopted by resolution. So that as new council members come in and council changes, it's easier to make changes to those rather than having them be ordinances and codified. So I came back in and said, this needs to be a resolution and this is why. And for cleanup purposes, you need to repeal 214, just so that this confusion doesn't happen again in the future.
So hypothetically speaking, because the mayor and I worked this out before we got into council tonight, if I had asked for certain items in the consent calendar tonight to be removed, I wouldn't have any legal standing to do that, correct?
You would have followed the procedure that's been adopted by this council by resolution 2 meetings ago, or last meeting, I can't remember when.
Last meeting.
Last meeting.
Okay.
And as a matter of record, I think you can go back to the first time I brought forward the information around the consent process as identifying it as being confusion from the staff point of view as to whether or not it was repealed, and that it was easier, when in doubt, we bring it to you guys for a decision. So we can bring that decision point to a clarity place, and that's what I've done. And I've attempted to be very open about that process. So if I haven't been that open, I would expect feedback from council as to what I can do to improve.
Any more questions, Tom?
Not at this moment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for making your questions about the agenda item. Ed, anything you want to add?
I reserve my time.
Okay, Sandy?
Yes, so if 214 was void or whatever, then what were we operating under to define what a consent calendar was before that?
Your own internal procedures that you've established. So I think the record has shown that those deliberate decision points or acknowledgement of the council proceedings by way of the mayor and council's adherence to it. We just took a point from that place into at the direction of the mayor and council to bring forward it in the form of a resolution.
Well, first an action item for you guys to discuss,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
in the form of a resolution.
So, so in the past, we've been using, in order to take something off the consent calendar, you have to ask for it, and then it's seconded and voted on, like amending the agenda. So in tonight's meeting, we changed things around in the order of the agenda, but then we did not vote on that.
Right.
So in taking something off the consent calendar, it's still in the meeting. So we shouldn't have to vote on it
So
separately.
amending the agenda is adding or removing items, which didn't happen. You would have to vote on that. Reordering the agenda is at the mayor's prerogative. He can reorder things.
But that's what taking something out of consent calendar is, because that's an action item and just moving it to another
How
part.
to handle consent is a process purely driven by council decision, of which you guys did.
Okay. There are other cities, like McCall and Jerome, that have ordinances that define their consent calendar. And so why can't we just move 214 to become a new ordinance, in the last meeting, we only voted on one thing. We didn't have two different things to compare it to, like you were saying, Fonda. So, yeah, I'm not willing to let go of 214 yet, because it clearly defines how to do a consent calendar in a fair and clear way.
Okay. Matt?
Anybody remember what you were doing in 1993? Because I think that's when this ordinance was not adopted correctly, but was there. My question is whether the real reason for that ordinance was that any member of the council can say, because what it said is it just would remove the item. It doesn't say what you do with it. Perhaps it was just a way that one council member could say, get rid of it. And that's the end of it. I don't know. Without that clarity, I'm going to support our resolution to do a majority vote. And I want to make it clear that it still allows for discussion. No one's freedom of speech or not being able to represent their constituents still occurs because we have discussion with it. And if it's important enough that that a majority says, yeah, we need to remove it, then I think that's the way that, like, for example, I read a quote from Brent Regan regarding the KCRCC, and he says, hey, the majority rules, that's the way it is. If you don't like it, tough. But that's his quote. It's in the paper there. So I think that, and I think, Sandy, you're a member of the KCRCC, and I'm sure that you probably follow the rules and what he says.
Do you remember what you were doing in 1776 when the Constitution was written? I mean, that is a document that we still follow because it was good practice.
So what's your point?
The consent calendar, giving each person the right to speak, to pull something out of the consent calendar is fair.
So I'll go
It's
back to,
fair
have you ever
business.
been prevented from discussing a consent item?
May I ask, counsel, we're delving into the resolution details and we're straying well off our agenda item.
So I'll make a motion. My motion is that,
The two motions.
Right, I apologize. That's right, Matt. So what we have, since we're adopting an ordinance, I have to call for a motion to read the ordinance by title only, suspend the rule of reading it in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading followed by a roll call vote.
Why are we discussing, why are you reading the ordinance? I thought this was a vote to repeal 214.
You have to
It is
repeal in
because
the
we're-
same manner that you approve.
Yeah.
It's an ordinance.
We're using an ordinance to kill an
So
ordinance.
confused. Okay.
I'd like to take my time.
Do we deliberate after that? Or can we,
Well, let's deliberate all before we go through
I agree.
before we go through the procedure to adopt. So if there's more deliberation,
I'd like to reclaim my time.
sure, specific to the agenda item and not to the concept of consent, then let's do it. Go ahead, Ed.
Unfortunately, whatever.
Thanks, Mayor.
This has followed a path that is the way things,
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
yeah, I'm going to talk about the.
Point of order,
The
Mr.
ordinance.
Mayor.
Well, hold on, let's not get this out, let's not get the train off the tracks. Okay, so
I know how Councilman DePriest feels about this. He said it every time. It doesn't need to be repeated.
Well,
Do you read my mind?
Well, a pattern recognition, I know what's going to happen here.
Well, I'm going to use my First Amendment right of free speech, and I have the floor.
Is it on point with the?
Yes, it is. I believe it is, because information regarding this issue has been circulating around social media, and I heard it even went to the KCRCC's legislative subcommittee. Okay. And they're speaking to something called Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure in relation to this consent calendar issue. And I guess I'd like to ask council if the assertions related to Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure apply to Hayden, and if so or if not, why?
That legislative, that manual is for legislative procedure, and it's adopted by states to control your legislative process. It has no authority over the city of Hayden. The city of Hayden adopts its own process. That's what you've been doing. You also could adopt, parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order, should you choose. You didn't. But no, that manual, Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure, is adopted by the state for the legislature.
Just a point of clarity, it's not a state law.
No.
It's a state, the legislature has adopted it as a form of
Process.
of their meetings. Just
And
wanna
it's
make
not
sure that-
imposed on any city. We, as I believe council just said, cities have the opportunity, option to select either Masons or Roberts or their own procedures, type of thing. So there is no law regarding this and that, and again, that which has been disseminated throughout, again, is what it is. But do we have a motion yet?
well, I'm going to ask council if we're done deliberating, and again, not on the concept, but just on the agenda item.
yes. Yes, for the record, I would like to state this. So I believe in fairness, impartiality, and the right of each of us to be heard. Over the past 3 years, I've tried to take some things off the consent calendar in order to be able to discuss them in a transparent manner and to be able to vote on it separately from the consent calendar. This is a standard procedure across Idaho and the rest of the USA. Some of the items were regarding contracts, land grants, professional roster, commission appointments, and an item on the budget that was over $700,000 that I wanted to discuss. I ended up being blocked and voted no on the consent calendar a number of times. One of those times, another council member also tried to remove a contract and was unsuccessful, so the two of us voted no on the consent calendar. That particular consent calendar took 40 minutes to discuss, and then Mayor Purcell broke the tie against transparency. Every city around us follows standard procedures in the use of the consent calendar. For emphasis here, I'm going to ask a few rhetorical questions. Why are we deciding to continue to use the consent calendar in an obstructive way? Why not just do it right? Why not just allow each council member to have an equal voice, move said item into new business, and finish the consent calendar quickly? I've been on a quest to find out if the city of Hayden had a consent calendar process properly laid out. I was prevented from seeing ordinance 214 that has been on the city records since 1993 until June. So why was this hidden from us? Why was it not brought out into the sunlight and embraced? What are some of us running from? What makes keeping consent calendar items trapped in the consent calendar so attractive? Don't we all have a right to be heard? Why am I being censured when all I want to do is represent the voters of Hayden? I was talking to an Idaho state representative the other day over coffee. When he heard about this agenda item, he said something to this effect: the council should consider that nullifying the existing ordinance will open the door for potential abuse or the appearance of abuse of a council trying to hide important discussions from the public. So it's already been stated publicly by members of this council that certain ideas are not welcome in the public forum. All ideas have equal value. If we're going to avoid this march towards a social contract that's been in place, that has in place procedures to avoid public discussion of an unpopular viewpoint, then we have opened ourselves up to an elite control, a socialist control of an elected body. Do you really want this to be your legacy? Do you really want to go down in Hayden City history as the council member or mayor who brought about a process that has the appearance of opening the door for potential abuse, or the appearance of a council trying to hide important discussions from the public? This city council should not be wildly trailblazing a new path that will cause it to be unburdened by what has been. Thank you.
Is there any other deliberation? Is there a call for well, I guess we'll just go into procedure for adopting ordinances. I'm calling for a motion to read the ordinance by title only, suspending the rule of reading it in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading, followed by a roll call vote. I shouldn't have read that last part. We need a so moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote,
And this is
please.
just suspension of the rules.
Yep, this is just suspension of reading.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Schaefer?
No.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Suspension of the rules requires a
Majority
of the
council.
full council, and the mayor cannot break the tie on this, so you do not have a suspension of the rules.
We'd have to read the entire resolution.
It does have 3 readings. Go ahead, Abby.
No, I don't have anything.
You want me to read it?
No, I'm just taking a deep breath following that gross mischaracterization of what we're doing on the agenda tonight. So I will read the ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Hayden, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, repealing in its entirety Ordinance 214, including Section 4 related to the order and procedures of consent calendars for the city council meetings, providing severability, providing for an effective date, whereas the city from time to time has set forth through adoption of ordinances nature's procedure for dealing with city council meetings, and whereas the city has place such procedures when resolutions and ordinance city record, whereas this ordinance is meant to repeal ordinance 214 in its entirety and to eliminate any questions for validity of this ordinance. Now therefore let it be resolved by the mayor and the city council of the city of Hayden, Cook County, Idaho, of the following. Section 1, ordinance repealed, that ordinance 214 in its entirety is repealed. Section 2, severability of any paragraphs, parts of section, clauses, or phrases of this ordinance for any reason determined to be voided or invalidated for any reason by a court of competent jurisdiction. Such decision shall not be effective the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance. Section 3, effective date, the ordinance shall be full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law. That is the first reading.
I think you have to bring it back 3 times. Let me look.
You do.
Yeah, you have to bring it back to 3 separate meetings.
Yes, I realize that next meeting I will do the same thing, and then on the December 5th meeting, I will do the same thing.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, council.
Could you read it with more emotion?
Well, and your city
No.
administrator can read it as well.
So at this point, the process is paused, correct? Because obviously we can't go
Yeah, you will
to,
take the underlying vote on December 10th.
very good. Okay. Moving on. Anything to report from the city administrator?
I have a list if you want, otherwise I don't mind.
Well, I'm going to bring up the video issue.
Okay, just really quick, yesterday was Veterans Day. I just wanted to make council aware that we did place 5 pavers at the Veterans Memorial, so I encourage you to take a look at those. They look wonderful. I did hear back from our rec director who indicated that volleyball this last season was the biggest turnout so far for the city. So, and then basketball league started in October, and the trunk or treat and Friday fights ended up with about 1,300 people in attendance. So it just goes to show, and I've said this before, that our events and our recreation department truly finds a little bit of the heart of this community and what we do and who we see attend. So just a reminder for the public and the council that Hayden Lights Parade and Christmas tree lighting ceremony is Saturday, December 7th. I know we have another council meeting, and I do my best to remind you, but I'm trying to get this in the record today so you guys know. The parade starts at 5 p.m. Starts similarly like the 4th of July parade at Hayden and goes to Honeysuckle.
What time again?
The parade starts at 5 p.m. And I believe it'll be dark at that point, so wear brightly colored clothes. High vis, please. Then the last thing on the rec side of things is that winter activities guide is being disseminated to the schools, so we'll start to see likely some kids and families signing up. I did want to make note on the public works side of things that the Ramsey Road bid opening was postponed due to issue with a engineer's estimate, so we don't have a date yet that I'm aware of. I'm looking.
I think we'll have it at the next, we'll have it for the next one.
So look forward to bringing you back information around that. We did have the bid opening for the H6 lift station, and we're still confirming the bid legitimacy. That's part of that process. So we'll likely bring that back to council for acceptance at a future meeting. And then the bid openings for the force main and the combined project with Harbs is set to occur here on November 14th. So it's tomorrow, Thursday. And then the process for setting up the shop, quote, I say the shop, setting up shop at the New Lakes facility is occurring, getting ready for winter. Sorry, I didn't have anything on planning and zoning. I don't know if you have anything in community development that you'd want to give an update on. You don't have to, but. I mean, you saw a little bit of our work in community development with the decision tonight about hiring some more staff in that area. Other than that, I'm standing for any questions if you have them.
Any questions for staff? Captain Smart, do you have anything for tonight?
I have an exhilarating speech planned, but I think I'll defer to the next one and
Thank you. Moving on to mayor roundtable discussion. I'm planning to add an agenda item to our next regular meeting, and I'm asking for you to give your direction to staff in response specifically to additional requests made by individual council members to video record meetings other than city council meetings and planning and zoning. We're at a point where we're either going to need to hire somebody, let a contract that's not been budgeted for or something. We're kind of at our breaking point with the increase in the video recordings that we've had over our workshops and meetings throughout the last probably year or two. So council, please let us know what ideas you would like so we can draft an appropriate agenda item.
So are you saying that we're resource limited on videotaping or video recording additional meetings?
Yes, there are costs, there's labor, and it's kind of just been gone at in good faith, but our people that are doing it have hit their breaking point.
Well, I think the reality of it is the amount of meetings that we have, public meetings, it was never intended for one staff member to record all of those meetings. And so we either have to augment that staff. We have an aggressive IT plan for the coming year as evident within the budget that was approved. And as we navigate towards implementing a number of those IT systems, we have a one-man department. So when we start adding additional recordings to their workload, it really warrants us asking for some help with regards to that. So the question really to council is, what is important for us to make sure that we're come prepared? It's really hard for us to pivot when you walk in that day and say, we'd like this recorded. If we know in advance, we can allocate resources and plan for that. But in response to it the day of, it just makes it difficult. So we just want an open dialogue around that so we can be prepared and support the council and what they'd like from staff.
And maybe council would appreciate a memo or a matrix of an internal procedure where we all agree on what is and what isn't. It's not just a matter of planning Michael's time. It could be that he's working too many hours of overtime. We may need a contract. We need somebody to get in here and do it in his absence, or maybe that he's in the middle of an upgrade and pulling him off that is pulling him off of what he's really here to do.
And we're talking about video recording, correct?
Yes, video specifically. Audio is always recorded. We still have a commitment to run transparent government and to make sure that all of our meetings are attended by our citizens when allowed and audio recorded according to law.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
didn't we have a contractor recording the planning and zoning meetings?
We do, and that was acknowledged, I think, in the opening statement by the mayor, that right now we currently use our internal staff to do council meetings, regular council meetings, and then we have a contractor to do planning and zoning. But we're also being asked to do additional meetings in response to council's interest, and our question is, what is those meetings so we can come prepared, knowing that we're doing those, and not reacting to them moments before the meeting's supposed to start. We just don't have the level of available staff here to make those pivots at those times. So it'd be nice knowing what the expectation is and we can make them going in. But that said, I think what we need to balance the consideration with is what time we actually have available for our staff with the current demands placed on our IT department over the course of the next year. It really, when we think about it from that standpoint of, yeah, we want all of our meetings recorded and on the YouTube channel, that we really don't have the bandwidth right now to do that with the existing staff. So we have to bring you some realistic expectations of what that would look like with augmented staff.
And what we could do is provide you with a memo in the next agenda where we suggest where we audio record, where we video record, and then have you all deliberate and give us guidance based on that. And then, of course, we would go back and tell you what resources are required to support your desires. So that's what I'm suggesting. I'm just looking for a little feedback so we have a positive direction to move on.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't want anybody to burn out, especially somebody like Michael. I'd be interested in finding out a proposal of what's the scope of the number of meetings that we're doing or that you anticipate, and then how you would handle it.
Well, and some of that's really dependent upon council, because we have
Well,
occasionally special meetings that crop up that are relative to a specific item.
Yeah, I understand, and maybe that would be something where just audio would be done. But, I don't really have there's so many other meetings that we may or may not attend, and we just I don't have a good understanding of what the scope of that is.
Sure, and if you'd allow the conversation to happen, Mr. Mayor, maybe Abby and I can help illustrate the types of meetings that we currently are having where we're asked to, on occasion, the day of or the moments before the meeting starts to record it, and that would be for example, our workshops relative to, we've had a number of them relative to budget, relative to fees, maybe a specific item that you guys wish to discuss before bringing it forward to a decision. I'm trying to think of a good example. And then we have our special meetings that are relative to maybe a specific issue. For example, we tried to arrange a meeting with council and the charter school board. Are those meetings, those are what we call special meetings, are those, they're not things that are predictable necessarily going into the year. So we have to be adaptive and we have to be able to pivot on a moment's notice. But if we know going in that, gosh, they want these special meetings recorded from a video standpoint, we'll go in prepared for that. We can bring a realistic response back to council, but we get asked every meeting just about to record meetings.
So what if, and I'm just hypothetically speaking, the compromise was any last minute meetings, we just do an audio recording?
I think there'd been some level of discussion about this previously. We just have a new council, so we felt like, and maybe Abby, you can fill me in on, or the council on those previous decisions.
Our city council meetings, whether they're special, regular, workshop, they're always audio recorded.
So the city staff then will come back to council next meeting. We'll have a proposal of how to capture different meetings and workshops, and then council can adjust our recommendations accordingly. Anything else that we need to hit for roundtable? Ed, go ahead.
Sure. I went to the regional housing group. They had I guess they have it every 6 months. Maybe it's down to every year now. And the discussion of the ACI came up, Area City Impact. And I believe, but I don't know for certain, that the staffs are already kind of in the works negotiating with the various cities. And I think it's very important that we determine, because this will probably be the last one based on how much space is left, especially out to our west and there. And I know there's certain legal aspects of it, and we certainly don't want to have open discussion, which could expose us in a negotiation process. So I would ask that we consider, maybe as part of that next executive session, having an executive session to discuss the legalities and aspects of this ACI discussion.
We can consult with the civil council as to whether or not that would meet the threshold.
Okay.
And then let you know.
If it doesn't, just so you know, the initial conversations which have started are between the city attorneys, the planning department, and the city administrators, with just a first layer identification of where do our current ACIs overlap, because we have to make sure in whatever proposal we give to the county, those don't overlap. So that's just the initial step.
Before it gets too far into the process, will council have the ability to give input as to where and how? And that's kind of my point, where we want to go with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, my second issue here. Again, okay, First Amendment, freedom of speech, okay, we all talk about it, okay? It applies to everybody, okay? And I agree that everybody has a right to their opinion, whether I like it or don't like it, but I also have that same right, okay? When I make comments on social media, and I've said this numerous times, it is as Ed DePriest, private citizen. Not one of my sites or comments ever says Ed DePriest, Hayden City Council. Ed DePriest representing the city of Hayden. They are my own personal First Amendment right to freedom of speech. People don't like it, okay. I don't like a lot of what I see, okay? But again, my opinion is as a private citizen. And I'm gonna use my First Amendment right as a private citizen to express the feelings that I have, just like everybody has the right to do. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything?
I got a couple of short ones. I want to thank staff for an outstanding event for the Veterans Day event on Monday. When a lot of people had the day off, they were working the staff, and I appreciate all they do. And there's probably even a few days before the event, I'm sure they had to prepare for it. So thank you, staff, a great event. The mayor gave a good speech too, and that. The second item is that one of the things I make sure I do is I try to be concerned about my neighbor. So I don't go and start up my lawnmower at 6 in the morning on a weekday, and I don't start it up at 7 in the morning on the weekend, or start chopping wood. Of course, I don't have my wood stove anymore. But anyway, the point I want to make is I would like to bring forward on a future agenda item that we reconsider our sound ordinance where we have the hours. And the reason why is we have some subdivisions that are going to be going on for a year or 2 years, and there's going to be construction work going on for a year or 2 years, and there's a lot of neighbors there are going to hear that. So I would propose that we bring something forward. I think we already have a sound ordinance. I just want to adjust the hours and look at adjusting that. And that's something that I hope that the council would consider and be considered. They're concerned about the neighbors and how they're being treated.
So how does council feel about that?
I agree.
I'm in agreement with that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just be aware as we, I guess, think about that we've got summer hours, winter hours, the sun's not a constant, so I guess we'll stick that on the agenda.
Mr. Merritt,
Yes, Donna.
we've done a variety of miscellaneous code amendments with planning and zoning. This was one of them, and they spent a great deal of time with it. We can bring forward what they ultimately decided not to change and bring forward to council for recommendation, but we can bring it back forward, back forward to you folks as well.
Let's use that as a starting point, what planning and zoning deliberated and what their recommendation is.
But we have to find some workshop dates, because that isn't the only workshop date that we kind of need to find. And you guys have 2 meetings between now and the end of the year, so.
Let's hit our starting point, and then after council evaluates what planning and zoning is recommended, then we'll cross the bridge if we need a workshop or not.
Do you want that discussion to come at a future council meeting or at a workshop? I think that's the
No,
question.
I think step one is let's let council see what P and Z's already evaluated.
At a regular meeting.
It would
At a
be
regular
helpful,
meeting.
however, to have a full workshop on the miscellaneous code amendments and bring them all forward at the same time for movement. Just,
Separate item, yes.
Donna, would you do me a favor? Note to self, could you send me a link to whichever, or just tell me which P and Z meeting this was discussed so I can.
I can do that.
We can send it to all of you.
And if
Yeah,
you
you
could
can
like
send it to all of you. It was
approximate
separate.
minutes so I don't have to go through.
Sandy, I have one quick point.
Anything else?
Yes, were you going to bring up the airport town hall?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the Hayden Airport is going to have a town hall tomorrow called Airport Town Hall and the Future in Our Community. It's going to be tomorrow night, November 13th, from 6 to 8 at the Kootenai County Administration Building.
Okay.
Okay.
Ed, you had one
One
last
more
thing?
point, and to tag on to Matt, for those of you who were there and those of you who were not, I don't know if it was videotaped, okay, the Veterans Day program, but I'll tell you what, the gentleman who spoke, the talk that he gave had to be one of the most amazing and heartbreaking talks that I've ever heard in my life. I don't know if we have a video of it available, but this gentleman is up for the Medal of Honor, and I can see why, based on his description of his first day in combat in Vietnam. And truly amazing. And if there's some way that anybody can get a look at it, I'd recommend it. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moves.
Adjourn.